This is We All Be News and Radio.
Ron Hurd. Get up out of bed. Let's go. Let's go. Ron Hurd. That's the word. Get out of bed. Give me a jingle. My number is 051. Get out of bed. Let's go. Don't be afraid. This is Herb Smith calling you. Herb Smith. All right, I know you're famous and all that kind of stuff, but let's go. Get out of bed.
And welcome, Black family, to another wonderful edutainment edition of the Artivist Presents We All Be Radio. I'm your host for the empowerment segment, Brother Ron, also known as R2, C2, H2, the Artivist. And family, we got a great one for you today. Today's topic is bigger than Ferguson. More police brutality news. And we got a lot of things going on right now, family, in the world today. And thanks to social media and technology, we know about things faster than any time in history. But sometimes that stuff could be overwhelming. And so we all see it as our business to help you all navigate through all the stuff, the flim-flam, as you will, to get to the meat of the issues. So feel free to join us, family. Call-in number, area code 646-652-4593. Once again, the area code is 646-652-4593. If you're scared to go on the air, we're going to open up the chat room very soon. So feel free to share your insights, your questions, your comments, your concerns on the chat room, and we'll get to them. But, 2 hours doesn't really do this topic any justice, but we're going to do what we can. We got some great guests in. We're going to talk about a lot of great things, a lot of terrible things, but also a lot of great things going on in our great and beloved community. So feel free to join us for this discussion. Without further ado, we'll get to our main guest. This is a good brother. Sometimes we don't really honor our heroes and sheroes like we should, our true prophets, our true freedom fighters in our community. But my guest today is the one and only Brother Tony Brown. Brother Tony Brown is a radio broadcast journalist who is thoroughly rooted in that African-American tradition in using media both as an investigative journalism tool to expose racial and social injustices and as an empowerment tool that effectively advocates for the upliftment of the African-American community via legitimate and positive means. In 2006 and 2007, Brother Brown used his very popular daily morning talk show, Eyes Open with Tony Brown, broadcasting from Alexandria, Louisiana, as a platform to discuss the Jena Six case. He was the one that gave the African-American male youth the nickname in the first place, and he was on top of this case even before there was a case. He was the first to speak out about the September 2006 hangman nooses incident concerning the whites-only tree at Jena High School that sparked a series of incidents which culminated in the arrest of 6 African-American male youths known as the Jena Six. Even before the BBC and CNN was on the scene, Brother Brown was given a blow-by-blow analysis of the situation from round one. I and many others thank him immensely for his selfless contributions in this important cause and so many more. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you scholars and laymen, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, melanated and non-melanated people, Brother Tony Brown. Brother Tony, are you there?
What a blessing it is to speak with you again.
It's been a while. I know it's been a while. I remember Jena happened almost 7 years ago. Is it 7 years ago? Have passed since the Jena Six movement?
Got that right about 7 years ago, man. And God bless you. Thank you for all you do.
And you as well. Like birds on feather, man. I just want to talk to you because you got a lot of important things to say. I mean, people have sort of kind of forgot about what happened in Jena Six. And we start with just really repeating ourselves over and over again with all these things that happened since the Jena Six times. And you got so many things going on in the Pelican State, also known as Louisiana, and it's not very good news from what I can hear, what we talked about yesterday. Can you tell us?
Let's start off with some good news. Let me start off with some good news, first of all. I want to thank you for bringing to remembrance what happened in Jena. We talk about the two-tier judicial system in America. We've been talking about it for a long time.
Bro, Tony? Bro, Tony?
Long before there was an Eric Gardner, we had a 25-year-old Marquise husband shot 8 times in Shreveport back on March the 15th of 2003. We also had, in November the 7th of 2004, 48-year-old Edward Ned killed by Lake Charles police. He was a mental patient, unarmed. Mm-hmm. We had a 24-year-old George Temple, a Southern University grad, a business owner, killed in Baton Rouge by a man who assisted police after a cop escorting a funeral service stopped him, started beating him when he protected himself, started getting the best of the cop. He was shot in the back 5 times. We had a 21-year-old Baron Scooter Pikes. I know you may be familiar with this story, Ron. He was tased 9 times while handcuffed in a 14-minute period when police dictated they take him to the hospital. The Winfield cop, Scott Nugent, took him to the police department instead, where they videotaped him begging for his life for 30 minutes, only to watch him die. The coroner ruled it a homicide. Coroner was not even called in as a witness by the VA during the cop's criminal trial. His videotape cries for help, not even used as evidence in that trial. Barron was killed by Winfield police in February 2008. We've then had 72-year-old Bernard Monroe Sr., a family patriarch, a very ill man with a trachea in his throat, killed on his front porch by Homer police in February 20th of 2009. That brings me to 36-year-old Richard Goss, killed in his underwear at the Greenbrier Hotel by Alexandria police. This is all in Louisiana on Thanksgiving week in 2009. His common-law wife of 11 years called for an ambulance. Police showed up instead. Minutes later, he was wheeled out on a hospital gurney, but in a body bag, killed by Alexandria police on January of 2009, which also brings me to 54-year-old Harold Phillips. Harold Phillips was killed by a cop in Colfax, Louisiana, who months earlier was fired by the Rapides Parish Sheriff's Office for abusing inmates. Mr. Phillips' only crime was horseplaying with his sister in her front yard. It was perceived as an altercation. His fear of cops caused him to panic and run. The cop pursued, pulled out his revolver, and shot Mr. Phillips 5 times in the back on July of 2009. We had a 23-year-old mental patient, Robert Ricks, a caregiver for his elderly mother, who called for an ambulance after he had a seizure. Alexandria police, who were not called, showed up first. Grandma pled with police to take him to the hospital. They promised her they would. They lied. Police tased him at the house. Then they took Robert to jail, where he was tased again by Rapides deputies. Minutes later, he was gone, killed by Alexandria police and Rapides jailers on February 5th of 2011. A year later, his grandmother, who he cared for, also died. We had 22-year-old Victor White III, and that was this year, March 3rd of this year. After being searched, he was handcuffed, beaten, and robbed. Iberia Parish Sheriff Louis Ackle wants you to believe he produced a gun after being searched twice. The police were able to find a dime bag of weed, but were not able to find a weapon. They said once he got to the police station that he became disruptive, was able to produce a weapon, and was able, although handcuffed with his hands behind him, to shoot himself in the chest. Initially, police in Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office said that he shot himself in the back. This was the next day. The coroner, just a month ago, said that, no, he didn't shoot himself. 18-year-old Cameron Tillman. He was shot multiple times by Homer police after opening a door to a vacant house in his neighborhood. His brother and friends were hanging out. This is a home where they always hang out. It had a hot spot in it. It was an abandoned house. That's where they went to hang out. Police lied and tried to say this honor student had a gun. They placed a BB gun by his body. It was actually a BB gun, and witnesses say that BB gun was in the back of the house on the table. The child begged for his mother, I'm told, for 30 minutes. Family members were not even allowed to aid him. For that matter, we're told no ambulance was even called until after he stopped breathing. The Tillman child was murdered by Homer police just in September just a few months ago. Which brings me to this past Thursday, Ron. But Billy, I got one more to do. Just this past Thursday night, we're talking just a few days ago, 24-year-old Keenan Ardwan was killed by the Villepinte Police Department. He had an altercation with his girlfriend, his common-law wife of 11 years. She believes he came home a little out of his mind. Neighbors heard her scream. Police showed up. They pepper sprayed not only him but her as well. When she cleared her eyes, he was found with his mouth full of mud, his nose full of mud, his eyes full of mud, and he was bleeding once they handcuffed him. Minutes later, she said they took her to the front of the yard. He was in the backyard screaming. She could hear a scream. Then it went silent. He arrived at the hospital DOA. So that highlights in Louisiana within the past 10 years alone, Ron, 12 murders. What do all these people have in common? They all were black, they all were unarmed, and they all were...
So, Brother Tony, we breaking up a little bit. I know you're going in and out. I don't know what's going on, the reception or anything like that.
Okay, can you hear me better?
Yeah, I can hear you better. You're going in and out. Ron? Yeah, I can hear you better now.
Okay. Can you hear me now, Ron?
Yes,
can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay. Well, my point is, with all of these stories that I just went through, that's 12 homicides. Every last one of them at the hands of police, all of them unarmed black men, and in all of these cases, and certainly the ones that are active, with those exceptions, not one indictment of all these white police officers that did these crimes.
Wow. That's all since Jena Six. That's all over since 7 years after Jena Six.
This is all in Louisiana since I've been tracking them. You know, the government says that they don't track murders of unarmed black men at the hands of police in this country. Well, someone has to start tracking them, and since I've been tracking them, certainly the last 12 years, we've had no less than an average of one a year. And so far, we've had no indictments, with the exception of the Colfax murder at the hands of police, where this black man was shot. Harold Phillips in the back 5 times. That was the only indictment. That cop was indicted on manslaughter charges. But then we have 11 other cases in which all of these white officers, none of them have been indicted so far. And certainly the 3 pending cases, the Victor White case, the Cameron Tillman case, and the case that just happened on Thursday night, Keenan Ardwan was killed by Villepinte police. So, Michael Brown's, Eric Garner's happen every year in Louisiana. But, of course, we don't have the media, the structure here, and certainly when it comes to local mainstream media, they hardly ever give us a headline or any coverage as it pertains to these very suspicious deaths of unarmed black men at the hands of white police officers. We have an epidemic in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but, what are some of the things, you was able to galvanize and mobilize with the Jena Six? I was going back to Jena Six because you are a media person that's very valued and respected in the community. So nobody else has picked up on your blueprint on how to mobilize people or get people aware of what's going on in Louisiana or their communities? No other media outlets?
Well, part of the problem, Ron, you already know, one of the reasons why you started your program, is because we don't have a voice. And certainly if and that's the problem in the country. We don't own any white TV stations.
Mm-hmm.
We own very few radio stations, and most of those radio stations are song and dance. They'll give us song, but not information and things that we need. And like you say, God bless the Internet. God bless social media. That way information is getting out, and now mainstream media is trying to pick that up. I think part of the problem is lack of resources with the local media, and more often than not, when you go to the local media, and I've worked in these newsrooms, I started out in television, I was a reporter, I was a news anchor, but more often than not, there's only a handful of black people, and if we're not even sitting at the table in the newsroom, or where they're deciding what stories gets covered, more often than not, they're going to side with the police, they're going to pull out a police report, and that's what they're going to run with. They're not going to go investigate the other side, they're not going to anybody's house to sit down with the mom or the common law wife or the girlfriend whose boyfriend's head got blown off. They're not going to do their due diligence, and to the detriment of the community, our stuff doesn't get covered. You know that better than I do.
Yes, definitely. Because what I was thinking about. The prosecution that happened in the Danziger Bridge incident during Katrina. How the federal government had to get involved in that. And it's like you have to have federal intervention. Because I thought about also. What happened to the brother, we talk about Oscar Grant, but also in New Orleans on New Year's Day, 2009, you had Adolph Grimes, I believe, who got killed by undercover police officers near his grandma's house. Yeah, are you familiar with that case? I mean, like, that case, that got dismissed too.
And see, the 12 that I've been tracking, certainly in my coverage area, but you know, whether it's New Orleans, whether it's Mississippi, or you're over in Texas, someone has to and I think it should be the federal government. Someone has to start keeping abreast of and tracking what's going on here. This has been a disturbing trend. This is nothing new, and everybody's saying the same thing. Whether it's New York City, whether it's Jacksonville for little black children getting killed for playing the music too loud. You know, whether it's the case involving Trayvon Martin down there with George Zimmerman, or whether it's Eric Gardner or Michael Brown there in Ferguson. You know, these occurrences where black lives seem not to matter are happening all too often, and it is incumbent upon us to get the federal government involved. You know, certainly right now, while we got a black man in the White House and we still got Eric Holder for a little while. God forbid when Barack Obama leaves and Eric Holder is no longer there. No one is going to be caring about this, and certainly mainstream America needs to wake up. So I'm glad this movement, you know, Eric Garner's case, no indictment, no true bill there, has sparked certainly some protests. We heard about the unrest in Ferguson as well, but this is all too common. It's a huge problem. And I'm glad you mentioned Jena, because I just got a call from Michael Bell just this week. Michael Bell, you know, and that shows us, Ron, that everybody deserves a second chance. Now, if my show wouldn't have exposed what happened in Jena with the Jena Six and assisting those families, and coming over the blueprint to contact the Justice Department, whether it's Reverend Al Sharpton, whether it's the NAACP, whether it's the FBI or the Justice Department. Had we not exposed this, you wouldn't have picked up on it. The Chicago Tribune wouldn't have picked up on it. Mainstream media wouldn't have got a hold to it. Michael Baisden, Tom Joyner, and everybody else who came, Johnny come lately, after the mainstream media got there, wouldn't have picked up on it. So God bless a second chance, and that God gives second chances, because Michael Bell called me just 2 days ago. He texted me, actually, and invited me to go to his graduation from Southern University this Friday. So here you have a young man who could have been thrown away in the jail system, but because America answered the Macedonian call, and some 30 to 40,000 black people, including yourself, came down and showed up and showed out with us in Jena, we exposed that two-tier judicial system, but all we did was we got those 6 boys freed, and 2 of them have college degrees. One of them's going to law school. Michael Bell is walking at Southern University with his bachelor's degree on this Friday. So when we intervene as a people, raise our voices, guess what? We can help save some of these children who are being cast out and thrown away by the justice system.
That is beautiful, man, because he really caught most of the hell, though. He actually was in jail. But what happened to the rest of the Jena Six?
He was in grown folk jail for an entire year, Ron. You remember they actually, within a matter of days, I remember the LaSalle District Attorney in LaSalle Parish went and pulled him out of the juvenile system, stuck him in jail as a 15-year-old with grown people. And he stayed in that jail for an entire year until the movement started, and until he got bailed out by, with the help of my doctor friend out of Lake Charles, Louisiana. But now here you got a kid some 7 years later who's walking with a bachelor's degree, who has a second lease on life, and has taken his life and what he went through, and is now trying to help others. And we got another one of those Jena Six kids that's actually working for the ACLU, and is enrolling this year, within the next year, to Southern University Law School. So those occurrences during those kids' lives when they were in high school, where they could have been cast out and thrown away, thank God people like yourself and people like the show and people like black media and the internet help expose the unrighteousness, and everybody came down and helped those kids, and all those kids, not one of them in trouble, all of them are doing extremely well, and at least 3 of them have college degrees now.
Wow, that is beautiful. And also, I've been thinking about this for about a year now. There needs to be a follow-up on the Jena Six story, because, like, you know, Michael Baisden is no longer in operation as far as broadcasting live on the terrestrial radio. Like, he was a big influence maker in bringing more awareness once it hit mainstream. But I think it's very important to do follow-ups like this, let people know that, hey, things did turn out right, because this case could have easily been another Scottsboro Boys or Central Park 5.
Well, you're exactly right. And, you know, every year, right about the time, he's very reluctant, particularly Michael Bell, to talk to the media, because he's been beat up so bad by the mainstream media. Right. But he talks to me. When I call him up, Mr. Tony, because, really after all the cameras picked up and left, after his mother was picked up by the sheriff there and forced to pay for him being in the juvenile justice system. They actually made her pay, and because she couldn't pay, they went and arrested her, put her in jail. She was in jail for 2 months before I got wind of it. And after everybody had gone and left, including the Michael Bateses, the A.L.L, and everybody else who was here from Hollywood, New York, and every place else, the father called me because everybody had gone and packed up, and I was able to help raise. And I called A.L. Sharpton. God bless Reverend A.L. Sharpton. I say that every time I've needed him, he's come through. And I asked him to come up with half the money for her bail. Me and my listeners came up with the other half. I think it was, it might have been $3,000-$4,000, and we were able to pay her arrears. And we went down there. I went down there with an attorney friend, LaSalle Parrish, and we went and got her out of jail and told Michael Bell. This was like maybe a year after everybody left to go get his mom. And so many times after all the cameras are gone, after the 15 minutes or 5 minutes of fame are gone, the family is still left here with the tragedy and still left oppressed and still being beaten up and harassed by the police. So, she's gone. She's no longer in Jena. None of these kids are no longer in Jena.
Right.
As I mentioned, the silver lining here is that 3 of them have degrees, and most of them have moved and are living productive lives. One of them is married, and I think one of them even has a child. So, these kids, Trayvon Martin, too bad he didn't get that chance. Certainly too bad that Michael Brown didn't have that chance. But because we intervened in Jena, we got 6 lives that got saved. And all of these kids are doing something very positive and productive with their lives.
And that's beautiful. I'm glad you was able to give that good news, that silver lining. But also there's some things, like you said, some pushback as well, because I know that one of the Jena Six males, like his sister is in jail still, correct, for her activities involving galvanizing that movement. Is that true?
What did you bring that back to me? I didn't quite.
Like one of the Jena Six, one of their sisters. Like one of the sisters who were involved in getting people aware of what was going on in Jena. He's in jail over trumped-up charges, I believe.
It's my understanding that one of the 2 girls who were working for Color of Change, one of those girls, one of them was the parent of one of those kids, and one was like, I guess, a pseudo-parent. But she got caught up, is my understanding, in some drug dealing, and I think got convicted, and it may still be incarcerated. But it has absolutely nothing to do with what she did, I think, in Jena to try to help expose it and help get the families gathered. There may be something to that. I'm not sure, but I heard something. There might be some sort of retaliation, but retaliation isn't evidence on drug dealing to get a conviction. She obviously was convicted, and someone turned state's evidence or fingered her, and it was enough for a jury. And it's my understanding that she got a couple years in jail. I'm not familiar with her name; it's at the tip of my tongue, but I don't think it had anything to do with retaliation as a result of Jena. I think that's just misinformation.
Okay, I want to make sure, I want to clarify. I heard that floating around the internet for a couple of years now. And also, like, you mentioned Brother Michael Bell. How's Brother Marcus Jones?
You know what? I plan on probably calling Michael. I know him and his father had an estranged relationship. That in his entire childhood, even into adulthood. Let me say this, because you know me, my motto is to come clean or stay away nasty. Marcus Jones was highly seen during the Jena Six. He was Johnny-come-lately to the movement, but he came in there and I guess did what most dads would do, try to protect his cub, although he didn't raise his cub. But even after the Jena Six, when Michael Bell was graduating from high school up there in Monroe, where they had placed him into a private school and even some righteous white people had helped, he called his family, his dad in particular, to try to get help with his wedding announcements and his invitations. His dad didn't send him anything. Okay. I sent Michael Bell money to get his wedding invitations and his stuff sent. So, to me, that speaks volumes about Marcus Jones's relationship with his son, even after Jena.
That's interesting. I know you and Brother Marcus, we brought you off to St. Louis, to Washington University to speak. And I know, he told me some interesting things. Just talking about, his love for his son. It's undeniable that he has a love for his son, But, what about his situation financially? Is he okay financially? Could that be another reason why?
Well, how do you show a child that you love them? Well, you show a child that you love them by doing for them and doing what parents do.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it. Like I said, I'm going to come clean or stay away nasty. And the simple fact that I had to help Michael Bell get the invitations for him to graduate from high school to get his stuff ordered, and his dad told him no. So to me, Marcus Jones, as far as I'm concerned, unless he's changed, I thought, he did what he did during Jena. He got a lot of exposure. He loved the cameras. Glory seeking is what I call it. But, I don't think he changed much as far as giving his son the support that he needed, even after the cameras left.
Okay, you also say that Michael Bell has actually got married. He's married now?
No. I'm saying Michael Bell is graduating on Friday.
I got that part. I thought you said wedding invitation.
With a bachelor's degree.
That's what I heard, wedding invitation. I thought you said wedding invitation.
What I'm saying is I still don't think that Michael Bell and Marcus Jones, his father, who was all in front of the cameras and all over the radio and TV back then, I think he disappeared again, is my understanding.
Yeah, I also want to talk about Jena because it was a very powerful movement. This was like, things were getting like really utilized in social media. It's like one of the first, this is right after Katrina, like 2 years after Katrina, where people actually had a chance to use the internet to mobilize social movement. My problem is that the prosecutor and the judge still remain in office. I'm looking at Ferguson, you got the prosecutor. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Prosecutor, maybe. No, but we got rid of the judge.
Got rid of the judge, okay.
Actually, when the NAACP went to the governor, then at the time Kathleen Blanco, and told her that she had the power to send a special judge from the Supreme Court up to LaSalle Parish and to not only take over that case, but also to remove that judge. And that's what they did. They forced him to resign. He left the bench in shame. So, no, he was no longer on the bench after Jena. He was removed.
Well, I'm actually just about Ferguson because, they requested those folks stop traffic up in Ferguson. I went up to Ferguson a couple of times for several days. Folks stopped traffic on the highways to tell the governor, Jay Nixon, who was a Democrat, or is a Democrat supposedly, because black folks love Democrats. They told him, please get a special prosecutor in because Bob McCullough is too close to the case or too close to police. And he would not do it. And so we had the situation on November 24th. So what could they have done something differently? I mean, what would be your advice in that situation for black folks in order to get change?
I think that's the right way to go. I mean, to me, that's the right way to go. You hear a lot of people talking this week about when you have questionable shootings of unarmed suspects at the hands of police that you need to bring in a special prosecutor always. Because, that's the district attorney and the police have a very close relationship. The DA depends on the police work to prove their cases. They need each other. And in the unlikely event that a police officer goes astray or does something that's contrary to the law, it's hard for a prosecutor to, in many cases, to be objective in going after the people that he needs every day to build his cases. So it doesn't make any sense. It's like, we don't allow police we don't allow police to investigate themselves when there's a questionable shooting of an unarmed suspect, particularly if they're minority or black. That police agency, whether it's the chief of police or whether it's the sheriff, in parishes here in Louisiana, we don't have counties, they usually call the state police to come and at least give the appearance that there's going to be an independent and objective investigation. And I don't even see it with the state police. I don't see objectivity because we have never been able to get an indictment. We've never had the state police step in on and at least these 12 murders that I just highlighted earlier on your show to come in and say something contrary in their investigations to what the local agency does. So I agree wholeheartedly that it should be a law in most states that when there's a questionable shooting or unarmed suspects, that there needs to be a special prosecutor brought in always, because that's a conflict of interest for the DA to go after the very people that he depends on to build his cases on a daily basis.
Well, actually, just
we don't allow police to investigate themselves on questionable shootings. Why will we continue to allow district attorneys to go after people within his own family and expect them to do a thorough job. They will not. We saw it in Jena. That guy laid down in Jena. I saw it in Winfield. Laid down. Bottom line is they did not put up a proper prosecution for the people that they are elected to do so. And this is happening all over the country. And I think Jena was almost kind of the embodiment of what we're seeing not only in Ferguson but up there in New York even.
Yeah, I want to ask you this too. I mean, I asked Pamela Means this summer, the president of the National Bar Association. I asked everybody this that I think are doing great things for our people that are very decent and honorable people. I want to ask you this point blank. Give me a yes or no answer. Can black folks get justice in this system?
No.
Okay, that's all.
Not the way that it's currently structured. No, we can't.
Okay, and I also want to ask you.
More often than not, Ron, that we have to rely on a public defender. In Louisiana alone, I've seen cases where the public defender only sits down with his client 15 minutes before they go to trial on a murder trial. So, when you have underfunded public defender's office, many of them trying to handle 300 and 400 cases because there's so many backlogs. Why in Louisiana do we have the highest incarceration rate in the country? Why in Louisiana, although we make up less than a third of the population, that we make up 80% of the prison population in almost every state prison or private-run prison in the state? We're only not even a third of the population, but we make up 80% of the prison population. That's because in Louisiana, not unlike most places in America, it's a frightful thing as a black man to walk into a courtroom when you look to your right, the prosecutor doesn't look like you. You look to your left, the public defender or your attorney doesn't look like you. You look at the bench, the judge definitely doesn't look like you. And you look over peers, to a jury of your peers, and none of them look like you. In many cases, when you walk into a black criminal trial in Louisiana, the only person in the courtroom that looks like you is the jailer or the bailiff who brought you there in shackles from the sheriff's office. It's a travesty. And then we're the first ones, Ron, to try to get out of jury duty. When we're called to jury duty, we're the first one to say we got something to do, or I can't do this, or try to do everything in our power to get out of jury duty. We need to treat jury duty just like it was our vote. People died for that right. And when we get called to jury, we need to serve it with honor because it is a blessing and comforting to see somebody who looks like you when you go before the man. It's always the man.
It's interesting, like you made some great and valid points, Brother Tony, but also I want to add this as well. I think it's interesting to me because I had went to a appeal hearing before the Mississippi State Supreme Court back in July, and it concerned a case of a brother named Curtis Flowers. I think Curtis Flowers is the only person in American judicial history to be tried 6 times in a capital murder trial on the same evidence, all circumstantial.
Oh, my God.
Nothing connecting him to the scene of the crime. It's like it's out of some type of law and order. It's like he's killed a Mockingbird Part 2 on steroids, right? So he's been tried 6 times on the same evidence, nothing connecting him to the scene of the crime.
I mean, what happened to that?
Well, you black, right? You can't get no justice, you don't get no fair ruling. So here's the thing, though. The prosecutor, they moved the case several times throughout the state. So here's the thing. The prosecutor actually asked 10 questions of the potential black jurors, only asking maybe 1 or 2 questions to the potential white jurors. But my problem with black folks is that it's not that a lot of us don't want to get out of jury service, but we too honest when they ask us. We give them an honest answer. Like if they ask us, for example, can we be fair or unbiased? A lot of us say no, but a lot of potential white jurors would lie because it's about the system of white supremacy. They rather fight on a lie than stand for the truth. I mean, we're dealing in a system of racism and white supremacy.
You know what? There's some credence to what you're saying, man. But when we have to stand before God, and if there's a difference between lying to man or lying to God, I'm not gonna lie to man for forsaking God. So I think our truthness, and I would have to agree, is not necessarily on us wanting to get out of jury. Our truthness is just that we're real people, and we're so real to help people, even our own enemy, because the Bible tells us to do that. I see it all the time here in Louisiana. The very people who are oppressing us, we want to reach out with an olive branch for them time and time, and that's the Christian thing to do. And maybe it's the Christ in us that propels us to tell the truth when we're up there, being questioned by the district attorney or whoever attorney, trying to select a jury. Maybe that's what it is. I like to think it's our honesty and just trying to do the right thing.
Don't play devil's advocate here, because they always make people swear on the Bible in court. What if you are atheist and you put your, you don't believe? I mean, I'm just saying, like, some of this stuff is kind of ridiculous. This is not about being before God. These are man-made laws. This is Caesar's law. So we kind of confuse the two. We confuse the law and order people with being God, with being the supreme being. And it's not the case, because you look at, okay, for example, you look at baseball, right? Baseball, always talking about they cheating on steroids, but baseball is built on cheating. America was built on cheating. They cheated. They didn't pay people their wages. They made them slaves. So America's wealth was gained from not paying people wages. Even now, when the fast food workers, they march for $15 an hour, they will pay it, because really they're supposed to be paying you almost $30 an hour for minimum wage. And yet the fast food workers say we want 15, but you really supposed to be getting almost $30 an hour based on inflation of the economy. So they'll make you fight for crumbs. And, I don't understand. I mean, I even look at Jena, like how we all came down there. You talking about Michael Bass and all these people, Johnny Cunningham lately. They having a party. We're rewarding white supremacists for bad behavior. We stayed at their hotels. We use their transportation system. We add their restaurant. We rewarding them for bad behavior. And I look at right now, we keep on rewarding, even during the holiday season. We still buying crap. But I looked at Black Friday as a sign of hope, because the sale numbers were off. And they won't attribute it to what's going on if a lot of people organize against the police brutality. But what is the thing we can do to get our grievances heard correctly? What should we be doing right now as far as strategy?
Well, Ron, first and foremost, we got to get educated, man, and make sure our kids get educated. Education is the key. We perish for a lack of knowledge. That's even Scripture. So non-Scripture, Scripture, it's about knowledge, access to knowledge, being able to decipher knowledge, and again, education. I can't say it enough. And unfortunately, the numbers are down. Our kids are dropping out of school in record numbers. In Louisiana alone, we got a 50% dropout rate. And that's with all kids, black and white. So the dropout rate among black kids is, you're talking about 70, almost anywhere from, I would say, almost as much as 75%. So only 1 out of every 4 black kids in Louisiana are graduating from high school right now. The numbers are going in reverse by comparison to the 50s and 60s when we had the fight for equal education.
Okay. So we got a lot of folks on the line that want to talk to you. Go ahead, sorry.
A lot of it has to do with, a lot. I don't know what's because of single parents raising kids, too much to do, and not focusing on schoolwork. But and I'm not saying the education system and what they're teaching us is correct. But the only way that we're going to release ourselves from the shackles of heirloom generational poverty is through education, knowing what they know, knowing more of what they know, and just trying to do it for ourselves. Recirculating our black dollars, doing business with each other. But we're in a war, Ron. That between good and evil. This war is about good and evil. It's never been about race. It's always been about what's right and what's wrong, and being on the side of righteousness. Because I want to be on the side of what's right.
I hear you, brother. I think we all want to. We understand what we're fighting, but I think if your education does not tell you who your enemies are, or define what the stakes are, if you let your enemy be your primary educator, you a fool, like Malcolm said so many years ago. And I look at the twin things that we need to have control over, we don't have control as a people, is our educational piece, is our economical piece. Because we don't control our education. They're getting rid of public schools. They got all these charter schools, but the folks who setting the policy for these schools don't look like you and I. They don't have the same values as you and I. They have a different agenda from you and I. Because I even look at right now the Black Studies program at these colleges was formed by folks in the community, by grassroots organizing. But the same folks who helped get these Black Studies programs in these schools and in these institutions, they are not allowed to create the curriculum for these things. I look at somebody like, for example, you look at New York City, you look at Bloomberg. Bloomberg is a billionaire many times over. Why would he want to be the mayor of New York City? They didn't pay him anything. They might have paid him $1 a year. It's not about money. It's about power. We keep on confusing dollars with wealth. Wealth is like owning stuff and creating legislation, setting policy. I could take a monster like Carlo Gambino, who never got citizenship in this country, but died an old man in a nice mansion on Long Island. I could take somebody like him. He had a felony, whatever, but he didn't need to vote. He brought politicians. He brought lobbyists. He set policy by helping appoint judges and whatnot. Not necessarily voting, but by controlling the economics of the system. And we're not in a position, and we are the largest consumers, but we're not in a position right now mentally to understand the value of creating your own economic base. Because when I went to Williamsburg, Brooklyn last year, I saw Hasidic Jews and whatnot. And the tour guide was saying that a lot of these Hasidic Jews don't believe in going to secular institutions, but on every block they had their own academy. They control the economics of their community. You'll never hear about a Jewish kid or a rabbi getting shot 20 times by the police in Williamsburg. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because they control their economics, meaning they control their institutions as well. They control the police, they control their education, and so they control their destiny. But I don't see black folks really sitting in the seat, the driver's seat, to control anything or to drive anywhere at this moment, which is kind of scary.
Well, it is scary, but, the Jews had a 2,000-year head start from us. We were ripped out of Africa, beaten, stripped from our mothers. We just basically the last, 50 years or so had the well, not even somewhat, but at least a semblance of an opportunity that they did. So, they got 2,000 years ahead of us. We can aspire to do what they do, have their own community centers, have our own community centers where we're teaching school. And somewhat I'm seeing that in the charter schools. I'm seeing some churches, some strong churches, and even here in Louisiana that are taking over these schools, putting black people in charge of them, getting that public money from these public schools, and teaching our kids a more diversified curriculum. And those kids are excelling. You're seeing it all over the country. So I don't know what it's going to take, Ron. We got a lot of problems. But I understand your frustration because I'm frustrated like you. But I don't think there's one solution to the many problems that we have as pertains to black people becoming organized, unified, because, we've never been together, and it's getting harder and harder for us to get together.
Okay, I'll wait the phone line because we really want to talk to you about this topic we have. I'm glad we're on with Brother Tony Brown, Eyes Wide Open, or Eyes Open, it's Eyes Open. It's a very popular Louisiana talk radio show. Also the man who helped form the foundation for the Jena Six movement, a true unsung hero in our community. It's an honor to have him on today, so I'm going to go to, Oakland, 510, you're on the air. Welcome to We All Be, sir. This is Brother Rudy.
Yeah, hello?
Hey, Brother Rudy, welcome to the show, man. This is Brother Rudy. You are the brother of Paul Moody, correct? This is Brother Rudy.
You're correct.
All right, hi. Thanks for calling in, man. You got any questions or comments you want to share with us today?
Well, what the young man said before you was 100% right. And like they say, the most people that take advantage of these schools are, the Mexicans. They take advantage of the schools. They make sure their kids go to school.
Mm-hmm.
And like I tell the young black here, if they go to school, learn a second language. Because California is going to be full of, California, if you don't know how to speak Spanish, you're going to be, shit out of luck, So, really, you go take you look when you call a store now, or pay a bill on the phone, they say press 1 for Spanish, press 2 for English. Okay, you go into a grocery store, you go into a doctor, you go into the police department. A person bilingual is going to get a job quicker than anybody. So that's just like the stuff in Ferguson. Now I might be wrong, but to my understanding, they say it's 20,000 blacks live there, and 20,000 people live there, and 14,000 of them is black. Now they have a white police chief, they have a white mayor, so that lets you know somebody ain't voting.
Yeah, amen.
somebody ain't voting. So if, they get out there and vote, they can control their destiny. And first thing that most police officers hired, they never been around black folks. They don't know how to react to them. If they try to hire more black police officers that have been around, they used to being, we all black. Yourself, you be somewhere and a dude be yelling at you, ooh, you just don't pay no attention, But when you check him down, he'll come down to your level. And, I don't care where you go, New York, Oakland, L.A., most white police officers are scared of blacks, And a lot of the parents should stop letting these kids run around with these little toy fake guns, because they look real, so that just give them an excuse. The reason why they can shoot them. Just like a lot of people don't know the way the grand jury works. The grand jury just throw this stuff in front of the grand jury. It's just one side of the story. Nobody else speaks, and that's how they come up with it. They don't have nobody saying, well, why did you do this and why did you do that? To me, they should just cut out a grand jury.
Well, actually, is it unusual for a person like Darren Wilson to testify for 4 hours before a grand jury? You think that's unusual for a cop that was actually involved in the killing of somebody under questionable circumstances to be allowed to testify for 4 hours before a grand jury?
Yeah, they could stay in there 5 or 6, 7 hours. They could stand in.
Well, hey, Ron, can I say something about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
You doggone right, it's unusual.
Okay.
When do you ever hear a grand jury or cops being taken into grand juries? That's hardly ever the case. Anybody who knows anything about laws, cops don't get called to grand juries. That was an unusual situation. And that shows you when that cop, Darren Wilson, was called into that grand jury, that district attorney, you already know what side he was on. He was on Darren Wilson's side. So let me bring Darren Wilson in and tell his side, and that's exactly the side that they took. Here you had 7 or 8 different witnesses who all saw the same thing. Saw a kid with his hands up, not advancing, who got killed and got shot repeatedly by this officer, Darren Wilson. But they took this white cop side as opposed to taking the side of the 7 witnesses who all contradicted Darren Wilson's statement. And when you looked at the grand jury statements, the evidence that the district attorney put out after he waited, at a feasible time to release the information, it's unusual to bring any cops before a grand jury. It's an unusual precedent. And normally cops are not there for the grand jury. You bring the cops into the jury, not a grand jury.
I also want to add this, too. I mean, it was like over 60 people, I believe, that testified in that grand jury process. And we talk about Ferguson and black-on-black crime and violence. Ferguson has a very low homicide rate. You got all the black folks that live there. One year recently, I believe, was either 2010 or 2012, there were no homicides in Ferguson. You got property thefts and all that stuff because of economic reasons. A lot of it is a byproduct of the economic times or whatever the area. But as far as homicide goes, the homicide rate is very low. But what my concern is this. You already just had 2 witnesses, 2 key witnesses that testified in the Darren Wilson grand jury thing who are now dead. You had DeAndre Joshua was found dead, shot in his car. DeAndre Joshua, he was 20 years old, worked at Walmart, didn't have a criminal record. They found him dead in his car, shot to death in his car right before Thanksgiving. Then this past week, you had Sean Gray, who was found, who was missing for 2 days and was found dead. Another young black man who testified at the Darren Wilson grand jury trial thing. So you have 2 black witnesses that have been found dead. And Dorian Johnson, his friend, is under.
That's unusual. So you're saying to me, and this is the first time I've heard this, Ron.
Right.
You're saying to me there's some sort of curse of the Ferguson grand jury and black folk who testified on behalf of Michael Brown are turning up dead? Is that what you're telling me?
Right. 2 of them so far in a matter of this couple of weeks. Yeah, 2 of them, 2 young black men who have testified.
And I agree with you. The law of numbers. And you're telling me in 1 year they didn't have any murders, and now you got 2 murders of these same people who had 2 things in common. They both were black, Well, more than that. They were black. They were both male. They both testified counter to Darren Wilson's testimony. That has to raise some eyebrows, Ron. For the life of me, why isn't anybody looking into this, and why haven't I heard this on mainstream media?
Because they got an agenda. Like, we can't trust. That's why it's so important to have a strong black media in this period. I even look at what's going on with Bill Cosby. A lot of people, we don't have a real black media presence like we used to. Because 50 years ago, we had the race beat. You had John H. Johnson. You had Avenue. You had the Chicago Defender, the Pittsburgh Courier. I can name so many different organizations.
Which was really owned by black people. You're right.
Right, but we don't have no news. And when black folks do have networks they form, they don't think about forming news programs on their network. So really the Internet is a godsend in terms of getting this information out. They're not trying, even with Darren Wilson, he said he had a broken eye socket. Now, if you look at that picture of Darren Wilson that the grand jury was allowed to see that we're not just seeing, there's really no bruises like that. You know, you think about a 300-pound, 6'4", or 6'5" person, you think about he's going to beat on like in the NFL on a mixed martial arts or something. Because even Brother Tony, I had a chance a couple of years ago to call George Temple mom. George Temple was the guy you said that beat up on the cop, and another guy came and shot him. And but George Temple was a boxer. I think he was like a Golden Gloves boxer. And I called his mom.
Okay.
And I thought I was interested in talking about his story. He said, well, what was y'all at back then? See, I reached out to everybody. Nobody took this story up. Nobody cared.
Yeah,
and it's like the one satisfaction
you know, I found out even about this story, because when I mentioned this story about George Temple, the Southern University grad, Mercedes-Benz driving, owned his own electronics store right there near the campus of Southern University. And so you're telling me some stuff I didn't know about him. But guess what, Ron? In reference to that case, when the NAACP tried to expose it and bring it out to the community, they were shunned by the black preachers. I heard this from Dr. Ernest Johnson, who was the one that was instrumental in getting Michael Bell freed by telling Governor Kathleen Blanco the authority that she had in the governor's chair. But he told me just this week, I didn't learn this, he told me just this week that they were told, and they were, that them trying to do something about that case drove a wedge between NAACP and the religious black community in Baton Rouge, because it's my understanding in reference to that case that they have been told, these black preachers, many of them on the payroll by the powers that be. Kip Holden was the first African-American mayor of Baton Rouge. Now, he's been serving there for 8 years. I think he's not going to be running again real soon. He has aspirations to run for lieutenant governor. But during the George Temple case, Kip Holden had just got elected as the first black mayor. So these black preachers didn't want to rock the boat. We got a black mayor in there. Let's not rock the boat. And that's what happened with George Temple. He got buried in politics, and so did his story.
Yeah, I know his mom. The only satisfaction she got out was the fact that he did get some good licks in on that cop. That's the only satisfaction she got out of that whole stuff. Like, she had like this. It's like she had a little.
The cop, you're right. I mean, because the cop really overstepped his boundary. I mean, when I looked at the story, and because I remember you and I talked about it, and I think I told you about it, and you went and found her and had her on the show. But this kid was defending himself. This cop came out hell-bent on whipping his kids behind because he pulled out in traffic on a funeral procession. Cop got out, had some words, and then he started swinging on George, and George started protecting himself, getting the best of the cop. And then some white guy pulled over. You see the cop getting beat by this black kid, and he drives up and he shoots George Temple, Southern University grad, very successful young businessman, shoots him 3 or 4 times in the back. No indictment from the. In fact, it was not even a grand jury indictment. They said that, hey, him protecting the cop, it was an honorable thing, and they painted this white guy out to be a hero.
And now we're going to get back. I'm glad we talked about this, and Brother Rudy, I still got you on. You can feel free to chime in as well. We got a lot of people that want to get in on this conversation on Switchboard. There's one person in particular I want to get in this conversation because he got some great and some terrible news to tell us about what's going on in the state of Missouri. I don't call it Missouri. I don't call it Missouri. I call it Missouri. That was the last state in the Union to abolish slavery, just back in 1949. Some of the worst fighting of the Civil War was done in Missouri. There's a lot of black history in Missouri. The first black high school west of the Mississippi was formed in Missouri. Sumner High School in St. Louis that produced Chuck Berry. A lot of great black folks come out of Missouri. Okay, that's our story in this country. But without further ado, you got the good doctor, Dr. Issa. Are you there?
Hey, I'm doing great. Hey, I'm Brother Brown. remember about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I came down to Virginia to talk to you about HBCUs.
Yeah, brother, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm great. My case is still ongoing. We did have one trial back in September, and they're going to retry me again on Angela Davis's birthday in January on one misdemeanor, but that's a whole nother story. But
we wish you well on that, brother.
Yes, sir. But I'm from Ferguson, born and raised in the Ferguson area.
Mm-hmm.
My family is there. My aunts, they all own homes in Ferguson. My cousins own homes in Ferguson. I was there until yesterday. I just got back to the East Coast yesterday. And I walked with the NAACP president, the new president, Cornelius Brooks, from Ferguson to Jefferson City as of yesterday. And we walked 138 miles in 6 days. And we walked through one town named Rosebud, which I have a YouTube video on it. I'll send it to Brother Ron right now, where people thought we walked into a serious time capsule, where the white population of this 450 people's town all lined up. They shot out our bus window, the bus that the NAACP had hired to take us down there. They shot it out with a .22 rifle. They had signs saying, you know, leave our town, leave our state. I wish I had killed that nigga, Mike Brown. We had several white people marching with us, too. And I can be honest, they called white people nigger lovers more than they called black people niggers. They threatened to even lynch white folk for being traitors of their race. And it got very, very, very serious because the Department of Justice had to march with us. And at one point, the deputy of that county, the sheriff deputy, stated that he would not escort us through it. Although we had state troopers, we had the Department of Justice, but when you go through a county, the law enforcement is the Democratic elected sheriff. The sheriff said that they couldn't walk us through there because many of the members were KKK members, and they couldn't guarantee our safety. But the president of the NAACP, Mr. Cornelius Brooks, insisted that we were going to walk, and we started walking. So the sheriff's office decided to escort us, but it was very dangerous. Our lives were in jeopardy. I myself didn't take it too seriously until I walked into this mob. I was in the back of the line, and one of the individuals told me that I looked like Mike Brown, and another guy said, yeah, you know those niggas got 9 lives, as if, you know, they were going to do something to me. And so but we had this reaction throughout our sojourner from Ferguson to Jeff City, the capital, in which when we made it to the capital Friday at 1 p.m., about 500 of us, the governor didn't even show up. But we were able to, the president of the NAACP was able to deal with a lot of very important issues regarding what's happening in Ferguson and all over the country. Like you say, Brother Ron, in your title, it's bigger than Ferguson, and you're right. These last 2 murders of 2 defendants, I have a cousin that lives in the area where Mike Brown was killed. It's called Canfield.
Right.
And so in that entire area is under martial law. Martial law every day, checkpoints at 5 o'clock. The National Guard patrols that area. And they had all the streets in Ferguson, a lot of the streets around one of the main roads called West Florissant were all under military and state surveillance, meaning you couldn't even go through that area until the NAACP came last Saturday. And me and a group of young people, we protested to the NAACP saying that, look, once y'all leave, we under martial law. And they're coming in and harassing people, putting, I forget those guns with the red dots, shining those through the window. Many of the people who testified, they feared for their lives. They all still live back there. And they were telling the NAACP board that once we leave, these people are going to kill us. You know, and so when we made this a big issue, I guess somebody called maybe the White House, I don't know, but they lifted the restrictions on traveling on the roads, but still at 5 o'clock, it still goes under martial law, which is actually against the Constitution at 5 o'clock. And so it's a very volatile situation. And now that we have 2 people dead, 2 black men who testified, who had no criminal record, who testified, they ended up dead. 2 young men. And we all know that it's extremely suspicious. And so we're asking that the federal government put all those who testified to the grand jury under immediate federal protection. And Mr. Brown, we need your help in making this public. I went on Facebook yesterday and I shouted this out, you know, and I said, look, these people, the KKK that has infiltrated many of the police departments all over this country, but particularly in Ferguson, they're out for revenge. And because there may be a possibility that Darren Wilson may be brought up by a special prosecutor, or the federal government may indict him. And so those witnesses become very important. So they're killing them. They're just wiping them out. So the only mainstream newspaper that did something about it is the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. They came out with an article yesterday, and I posted that on my Facebook page, and I'll put that link right in your blog talk message box. But I just thank you for dealing with this very important issue, and it's important that people like our elder statesmen and senior journalists, El Baba, Tony Brown, your voices, when you say something, the world listens. So, but it's very serious and it's very dangerous there for the black community. Everybody is scared. You have elders that are scared. Everybody's scared. They don't want this standing military there. It's not necessary for the National Guards to be there. And the governor ran out of town when we decided to march into Jeff City so that he wouldn't deal with this issue. You know, so we're wondering if Ferguson is being used as an exercise for nationwide martial law. And I wrote an article on this quite recently dealing with that may be the possibility. You know, but that article has been heavily censored by Big Brother, our nemesis of Anthony Snowden. So, Bob, I'm just coming on. I'm glad Brother Ron asked me to come on because these are very serious issues what's happening. I think the most important thing we need to do now is get everybody who testified on that grand jury under federal protection immediately. And I think someone like you can help to make that happen.
Well, let me say this, Ron. I don't want the brother to get me confused with the elder Tony Brown from the Tony Brown's Journal. Now, I'm not the same guy. I'm a bit younger than him, but I do the same type of work. And actually, I'm here in the Clandestine community of Louisiana, and, of course, we're the ones that first exposed Jena. You know, I do have 28 years of broadcast journalism experience, but not to equate myself with the legendary Tony Brown, but we do what we do down here. And if I can help you, I want to make sure that, Ron, when you're done with the show tonight, that you give this brother my personal cell phone number and that he calls me, because I'm on 5 radio stations throughout not only Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi, but we certainly can reach about at least 4 to 5 million people on a daily basis in about 200 cities in 3 states. So I want to make sure you get my number. I'm not the legendary Tony Brown, but I'm a Tony Brown that's still trying to do and continue the legendary Tony Brown of Tony Brown's Journal's work. So make sure you get my number from Ron tonight. You touch bases with me tonight, and tomorrow morning you'll be on my show. I'm on every morning, Monday through Friday, for 3 hours a day, primetime AM drive from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. And I've been on the air for 12 and a half years, been a journalist for 28 years, both in TV and radio. So I'd love to help you and allow you guys up in Ferguson to tell your story to my listeners, certainly.
Yeah, I want to thank you. Yes. Because you, Tony Brown, you are a legend in your own right. I mean, you have done some extraordinary things behind the scenes, and we do need a strong grassroots media. Because I can remember reading something what Dr. King talked about at a broadcasters convention back in '67 about the value of black radio during the Montgomery bus boycott. Because the DJ would send out certain coded messages, whether it be through the song or whatever phrase he'll use. They were able to mobilize the community in getting things done. And also I look at the fact that we just lost Marion Barry. And people got to understand this. Marion Barry is one of our greatest public servants of all time. He's in the top 5 easily, along with Adam Clayton Powell Jr. and a small group. But what he did was, unlike Bill Cosby, he didn't chastise or belittle black poor people and working class folk. He helped them to become middle class black folk. He helped black entrepreneurs become millionaires. Built and helped and invested in his base. So when the white supremacists try to take him out with that trumped-up drug thing, he had backup in the black community. That's why he was able to get his 4th term as mayor. That's why he's mayor for life, because he made sure that black kids got a job in D.C. He made sure white kids got a job in D.C. He helped give black folks their first chance. So black people rewarded him with a 2nd and a 3rd chance. That's something that we all should remember, because what happened in white supremacy is once you get a little success and fame, they'll lure you away from your support group. And once you cut out from your base, you have no army to back you up. Because white folks don't do things by themselves. They do things in groups. They lynch in groups. They go to war in groups. They take over corporations in groups. It's a mob mentality with white people. But the antidote to the mob mentality of white supremacy is black unity. That's how we get things done. It's not about money. It's not about nothing. It's about black unity. That's how you defeat white supremacy every time.
I agree 100% with what you said.
I want to add something really quick, Brother Tony.
Oh.
You said something that's very important. You said that in the beginning of the show, Brother Ron asked, I think, what is the biggest question that we got to ask on a national level, and that is, can black people get justice in this country? And you said emphatically, no. So I think from that, we need to decide what we want to do. Instead of going through these historical cycles that seems to never, it's like a dog chasing its tail with us in this system. So I think since it has been concluded historically that we cannot get justice in this country as a whole, and I always look at my case, as a professor who was simply standing outside supporting students' alleged constitutional rights. And I was set up, arrested, and prosecuted for more than 3 years. 1 misdemeanor resisting arrest, which is on videotape, right? And I still have to go through this. It's nothing more than COINTELPRO. But now that we know that we can't get justice here, if we can't get justice here, we need to really, really seriously, deeply, within our spirits, decide what do you do when you have a group of ethnic minorities in a nation that has historically oppressed and has historically, ethnically cleansed us in this country. And that's exactly what's going on. This is an ethnic cleansing of what's going on. And so we have to make decisions on what we're going to do. I know in the 1850s, brother, oh my gosh, I'm from St. Louis. Dred Scott is buried right about 2 miles from Ferguson, right there in that area. And so, in the 1850s, the black community made a decision, which went into hyper action after the Dred Scott case. People like Martin Delaney and Frederick Douglass, they held nationwide conferences on what to do. And half of the black community that were not enslaved decided that they wanted to leave this country and go back to either Haiti or South America or Nigeria. And the black church even put money together for Martin Delany to go throughout West Africa and meet with kings so that black people could return home or to a place where they were not ethnically cleansed. And so since in 2014 we have this issue at our hands, and this is a very serious issue in which you've already said that we can't get justice here. So that means that our women can't get married because all the brothers are in jail. Or we can't have children. Ron, you won't be able to have a lineage, a genetic lineage that is guaranteed by the Creator because they are intentionally targeting those young men who can leave a genetic footprint on this earth. So I think we really need to decide what we're going to do. And I never thought I would say this, but in listening to you, Brother Brown, you said we can't get our rights. We can't get justice. So we got to make as a group, we got to make some serious decisions as a group who can't get justice in a society.
Well, and let me say this. I'm not advocating that experiment to go back to Africa. Marcus Garvey and them tried it. We see what's going on in Liberia right now in that experiment. What I am saying is what we're seeing with the Eric Garner case, Ron, what we're seeing with Michael Brown case, and now when you see white people on camera, on mainstream media, who are just upset. And you said yourself, brother, they're out there on the front lines now, just as they were in the 60s, being called nigger lover. When the tides are turning, when all people, no matter what color they are, realize that we got a problem and that one segment of society is being unfairly targeted by the justice system from beginning to end, when we open everybody's eyes, then that's what is going to change. We can change this country, but it's going to take people doing it. The same people are protesting right now, and those same people getting politically active to remove those leaders who don't do what we do or don't do what we say, who do what they want to do once they get into power. It's going to start at the election process. You made a valid point about Ferguson. If Ferguson has 20,000, people in it, and 14,000 of them are black, and they still got a white mayor, white chief, white council, and less than 12% or less than 10 or 8 or 9% of them voted. You got 60-plus police officers, and only 6 or 7 of them are black. That shows that they have been disenfranchised, whether it's the education system, lack thereof, them not coming together, not realizing their political prowess, not going to the polls, not registering to vote, and it takes leadership. I think we can change this country. We may not see it in our lifetime, Ron. Brother, we may not see it in our lifetime, but maybe our kids, but maybe our kids' kids will see it. And this movement that is happening right now, it's been a slow movement because this stuff has been happening for the last 15 to 20 years. And it started with, God forbid, Bill Clinton with all these little misdemeanor drug charges, because even in Louisiana, 80% of the brothers that are in lockdown are in here for nonviolent drug crimes. This is stuff that people might need treatment over as opposed to incarceration. And then, once you get in the system, it's hard to get out of the system. You can't get a job. You can't get credit. You can't get an apartment. You can't get a loan. You can't get a bank account. So you're stymied once you have failed trap and victim to the system. And it's so easy to get into the system, and it's hell getting out of the system. I think we can change the country from within. I don't think it'll take us going back to Africa, but it's going to change everybody, changing their mindset, even like Ron said. So, we don't have our heritage. We have no heritage. Black, it's not a race. Black is a color. So when you talk about the Jews and having Jewish community centers up there in the areas where Ron visited, where they have their own police departments, where they have their own neighborhoods and communities, and they support education and support each other, we don't have 2,000 years of that history, of that old type of money. We've just been trying to make it for 50 years. And they continue to keep us isolated from each other. That slave mentality where everybody's going for themselves. You got to start from scratch. Your son got to start from scratch. The only thing we get from an old man or our parents when they die is debt.
Right.
We don't get any inheritance. So we're all on our own. It seems that way. They're not. And even the people who come in, even from the Middle East that come here, that seem to get a hand up, owning all the convenience stores, owning all the hotels, from the folk from India. Why are other cultures and other races coming to America and living the American dream, and we've been here for 400 years, and we can't seem to acquire it? We have to ask ourselves these kind of questions and what we're going to do to fix it.
I want to go to the call lines. A lot of people want to talk to you all and ask questions or comments. We go to the first caller that's been waiting. Air code 954. You're on the air. Welcome to We All Be. 954. You on the air? Okay, going back to that caller. We got another caller. 985. You are on the air. Welcome to We All Be.
Hi, this is Watika Tillman calling in.
Thank you, Sister Tillman, for calling in.
Hey, Ron, let me introduce Watika. I'm glad Watika called in.
Okay, go ahead.
Watika is the mother of 14-year-old Cameron Tillman, who was killed by police in Homer, Louisiana, just a little more than 2 months ago. I'm glad to hear Watika called in. God bless you, Watika. How you doing, sister?
Hey, Mr. Brown. I'm fine. I just left the Capitol building to rally today.
Fantastic. So, Ron, I'm glad I got her to call in on your show, Ron. This is the mother of that 14-year-old kid, honor student, who was just killed 2 months ago.
I'm off my condolences, sister, for what happened to your son. That's very unfortunate.
Thank you so much.
So what can we do?
Unfortunate. Thanks for your condolences.
Yeah, I mean, what can we do now?
What we can do now is get the story out there and help just go to these rallies and go to these legislative meetings and interrupt their meetings and get our story heard. That's a start, and show them that this time around that we're serious. Like, enough is enough. Get out there, be seen, and just don't stop with 1 or 2 rallies. Do it every day. If you're the only person that's standing there alone with your poster, fine, but don't let it be just 1, 2, 3, 4 times.
Well, Ron, why don't you allow Watika, we had a few minutes, to tell what happened to her son, for those who...
Yeah, please, Sister Tillman, tell us.
Watika, go ahead and tell them what happened back on that fatal day in February, just 2 more months ago.
Back September 23rd, my son Cameron was shot and killed by a sheriff's office deputy. Cameron was opening up the door because he thought it was his female friend. They were playing in an abandoned house. They've been playing there for the past 2 years as a hangout, after school. What happened was a white neighbor, she incited a race riot, as a matter of fact, a day later. But long story short, she made a false police call saying she seen a group of black boys walking with a BB gun. Mm-hmm. And the officer who was in the area, he parked at her house. Him along with another officer walked to that house. Now, granted, and the police call, they never even mentioned the house, okay? All she said was walking down the street. They never mentioned this house. This officer patrolled this area like almost every day. My son opened the door. He was shot immediately twice. He was shot so close that he had skin burns. My son, Andre, my older son, hurried up and closed the door. And this officer shot through the door 2 more times.
Wow.
My son told Cameron to hurry up and fall and play dead, but Cameron, he went in shock. So my son threw Cameron on the floor and hovered over him. Cameron lived 45 minutes without no medical help. At this time, you had witnesses, of course, was there. It was broad daylight. The 2 officers was outside arguing. They panicked. They left Cameron in there shot, went down the street to get their police units, and drove back up to the house. Still no 911 call. 911 wasn't called until 5:44 p.m. Cameron was shot at 5:19 p.m. He died around almost 6 o'clock. My son seen him take his last breath.
And Ron, let me say this about Cameron. Well, let me say this about Cameron. Cameron was an honor student. Cameron was an exceptional athlete who actually decided to tell his mom this year that he was going to drop out of football so he can focus on his studies because his classes are going to be a little bit harder this year. So he had a 14-year-old kid who was shot by police. And to add insult to injury, this neighbor who had called had said that a group of men had walked in with guns. So she didn't distinguish that it was a BB gun. So when police got there, they assumed that there was people in there with weapons. But the problem with the police is they didn't identify themselves. They knocked on the door, and as soon as Cameron opened the door, they shot him. And then the BB gun that people are talking about was actually in the back of the house on a table, I think in the kitchen somewhere. Am I right, Watika?
Yes, it was way in the back kitchen, a raggedy 1970s type broken BB gun.
But what they tried to do initially, right after Cameron was shot, is they took that BB gun and they placed it near his body. The cover-up started to try to happen immediately where they tried to say that was a weapon. So when they told the white mainstream media the next day that he had a gun, they had guns, and that they were in this house burglarizing a house. Now, this is a house they were in just playing as a hangout because they were able to, it was a hot spot. They were able to, use their phones, play video games or what have you in that house. They've been doing it for 2 years. Police knew it for 2 years. But that false report by that white woman led these police to go in there. They didn't follow procedure, and they killed this boy. Then they immediately tried to cover it up by saying he had a gun. This just happened 2 months ago.
Wow. Yeah. This is right. This is before even Tamir Rice with the BB gun situation up in Cleveland.
Yes.
So that's what they use now. That's their MO, BB guns. I mean, even John Crawford. John Crawford this summer up in Ohio at Walmart. So they try to use the BB guns.
And then they try to demonize him. But see, they couldn't demonize this kid because he was an honor student. That's the first MO, Ron, demonizing what kind of record he had.
Right.
Why were they in his house? Why were they hanging out? They juvenile delinquents. Why were they in there to begin with? It doesn't matter why they were in there. They opened the door to a house. There was no crimes being done other than maybe trespassing. But people in the entire community knew these kids hung out at their house. They weren't doing any illegal activity. They were just being kids, getting away from home and playing video games. But this
actually, the owner of the house said they weren't trespassing because they knew the kids hung there and it didn't bother them, and that there was nothing in the house to even burglarize.
So let me ask you this: but didn't the son that witnessed his brother getting killed, and the 2 other boys that were in there, weren't they all immediately arrested and placed into custody and taken to jail?
Yes, they were.
So what have they been charged with?
They wasn't charged with anything because there was nothing on the scene. There was nothing in their possession, so they had to let them go. So they let those kids go because they didn't have anything to charge them with.
And then to add insult to injury, this boy who was calling for his mother for almost 30 minutes after they had shot him, they would not let his mother. And there was a nurse, I understand, a nurse that was outside that could have given assistance, and that boy stayed in that house lying dead or dying for 30 minutes before even an ambulance got there. So he could have lived. He could have lived,
yes. We have a volunteer fire department that's 3 minutes away, and we had an ambulance in the area that was 5 minutes away, and he panicked, and he called his superior before he even called for other backup and medical attention. He panicked, basically, and I couldn't even identify Cameron. Cameron didn't have no identification. He was a minor, first of all, and they didn't even let me identify him. I tried to call the coroner. The coroner lied and told me his body wasn't there, that they had brought him to another coroner in a nearby parish, and come to find out that was false.
Let me ask you this as well. I mean, do you know if anything missing off his body? I mean, like organs, people talking about what happened with Kendrick Johnson down in Georgia.
My house key. His house key was missing off of him.
But none of his body parts.
Picture before it happened.
None of his body
parts were there.
Okay. I just think this is fascinating. I mean, we got to talk more about this because really, like what the brother said earlier, when they killed your son and try to kill your other son, they're killing generations of black people. They are killing out generations of black people. They ain't, it's just crazy that we sit here and don't know what's going on. Like, this is a war. This is a psychological, spiritual, all type of war.
Ron, this kid watched SpongeBob SquarePants. This was an honest. This kid made all A's and B's, gifted program.
Yeah.
This kid is our sacrificial lamb. I mean, nothing taken away from Michael Brown, but Michael Brown, had his issues. They said that Eric Garner was peddling cigarettes. This was an innocent kid. This was a child who got killed at the hands of police, and still America's not even talking about.
Michael Brown was starting college that Monday, so he didn't really have any problems that the media was falsely reporting.
Well, I'm saying in regards to, and I know how tough it was for him to even graduate and the conditions that he graduated in, but when you look at the video, I mean, I'm not talking about somebody who even the thing with the shoplifting thing, but the whole strong arm thing, and he was a big kid, and to buck up to that guy. I've been a journalist for 30 years. I'm not saying anything negative about Michael Brown because he's dead, but what I saw in the video I didn't like.
Well, the thing about it is,
I didn't like.
They put things on the video that suggested that I hit a police officer at my university where I was teaching. Right? They cropped up a fake video. Now, if you go to Canfield and talk to the people there, you'll find out that a lot of things that they're reporting on mainstream media, in which the people in Ferguson are boycotting, are false. Right? Michael Brown was on his way to college. Now, I have a PhD from Howard University. Mm-hmm. I got caught stealing a few times. Right? I got caught stealing when I was a child. Right? I'm just saying, none of our children,
we do stupid stuff on
I don't care if they were on crack. I don't care. They don't have a right to be gunned down like this sister in which we're talking about. None of our kids. And I think this leads
I agree 100%.
to the issue of what we're going to do. Right? I know that in Atlanta there's a group that's talking about plebiscites, that we form a plebiscite here. But there's something we have to do. Right? Because I don't think the current generation of white leaders in this country are going to tolerate a prolonged civil rights movement. They have been preparing for this. It's called the King Alfred Plan for more than 30 years. They're not going to tolerate this. So we have to decide if we are tired of being shot down and killed, and if our women can't have men to procreate with, we have that right. The United Nations says that we have a right to have all of these things. Then we have to make serious decisions that any group would have to make, whether that is looking at returning back to Africa, whether that is forming a plebiscite here in this country. We have to seriously engage in these issues. But we can't keep going through this generation through generation through generation. We can't do this. Or we will be exterminated in 100 years. Because these people are not going to change. They're not. I'm a historian. I have a PhD in U.S. history from Howard University. I'm telling you, they're not going to change. They're not going to change.
I also want to say this in action. Like we always, when it comes to black people being the victims in this system, it's always blame the victim because we don't control our media. If we don't control the narrative, we can control how people are perceived. So you look at all our great leaders: Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Ida B. Wells, Barnett, Frederick Douglass, yada, yada, yada. They all understood the power of perception, of telling your own story. They all formed their own media outlets. And also I want to say this about Emmett Till, because people always say, well, Mike Brown was no saint, he was no Emmett Till. Emmett Till was no Emmett Till either if you go back in time. One of the reasons why no white guy was able to get off was because of how they portrayed Emmett Till. Like the only way his mom could identify his body was through his father's ring they had on his finger. Emmett Louis Till, or Louis Till. Louis Till was killed. He was hanged during World War II over in Italy. He's buried, I believe, in France. But he was hanged over in during World War II for allegedly raping and killing white women in Italy. I mean, you got to think about it. Black person can't really get no justice in the system. If Bill Cosby could rape 20 white women, how come they going to hang this guy for killing and raping 3 white women? I don't know if it's true or not, but Senator James Eastland, the racist demagogue from Mississippi, the senator from Mississippi, James Eastland, went to classified files from the Pentagon to bring up their information and fed it to the media. Say, look, this guy is no better than his father. Yeah, he might have whistled at that white lady, but tomorrow he would have raped her and killed her. So his father did the same thing, which is very questionable. So this is what they do, but we don't understand our history. A lot of our digital babies are good with this technology. They're very smart. You got to give them their analog history some type of way. You got to feed them their analog history, because what they're doing with the die-ins, I'm following on the streets and they can run over me, that's what they want you to do. They want you to die in their system with no right. Because we all just Dred Scotts right now. We know better than Dred Scott was back in 1855.
One of the most important things that you said was about us and owning our own message. History is his story, whoever is telling the story.
Right.
We've never been allowed to tell our story. And even today, with the exception of Radio 1, where she has 200-plus radio stations, and a lot of those are just music format, song and dance, what we call it. So, we don't have access to information. God bless the Internet that has given us the information, but we're going to have to control our own media. That's one thing that Robert Johnson understood when he was painting those messages that we no longer own, Jet Magazine or Ebony Magazine. He understood how important the perception of white America and us telling our own story and putting out our own message. That's a powerful message. It can be a powerful network for us to do, to get our point across, because more often than not, one of the biggest problems we have here in Louisiana is shows like mine are very rare, not only in Louisiana but also in the country, where you have a Monday through Friday show on a mainstream radio station on the air 3 hours a day, talking about black issues, talking about news, talking about information, not song and dance. So we have to, we have to start maybe getting more radio stations, owning TV stations, and maybe getting to the point where we're starting to own our own message and paint our own images.
Definitely agree. I want to hit the phone line because I got a lot of people that want to get in this conversation. So I'm going to hit the phone line. If you got a question or comment, please add to the conversation. We're going down to Mississippi, 662 in your ear. 662. Hello? Okay.
Hello?
Yes. Welcome to We All Be. How you doing? Yes, you're on the air.
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Yes. I just wanted to make a couple of comments.
What's your name, sister? What's your name?
My name is Libby.
Okay, Libby. Oh, Sister Libby Love. All right, Sister Libby Love. Thank you. Welcome to call in.
I want to say a shout out to the brother from Howard University. I'm a bison as well, so and I agree with what you're saying. But I want to say too that, and I agree with what you say about we have to study history and what has happened in our past, because, number one, you don't vote your politicians, you buy your politicians, and that's what white people do every day. I see it every day on Capitol Hill. That's what they do, and as long as they can do that, when the Supreme Court has ruled that corporations are people and money is speech, black people, you have no power unless you have some money. All we have is presence. You can have an all-black anything, but that's all we have. That is all we have ever had, is we've had black presence, and we haven't had any black power. And until we have some kind of economics behind us, you will not get that in this country. You will not march it. You will not protest it. You will not vote them out. It's endemic. It's systemic. And we need to come up with another plan. Martin Luther King, if you study Dr. King, Martin Luther King realized that towards the end, and Reinhold Niebuhr, an American philosopher, white guy, and I suggest if you read his book, Moral Man, Immoral Society, and he cautioned Dr. King in the movement, about white people and how they are immoral. It's easy for individuals to be moral, but it's extremely difficult for people as a group to be moral. So we need to rethink this again about voting black people in office or people who look like us, because that's all we're going to ever get. That's all we're going to ever get. And then too, when they get in power, we have to stand back, like Bob Marley's Redemption song. We stand back and watch them kill our prophets. So we stand around and look while they gun down and murder our prophets. And so in the words of my sister and homegirl, Fannie Lou Hamer, I'm sick and tired. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm tired of seeing these kids, gunned down like dogs in the streets, in this country. And, just like Vernon John, who was the pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church before Dr. King, when he put on his billboard outside the church, it's safe to murder Negroes. And so it seems like, that is the mantra in this country now, that it's safe to just gun us down like dogs in the street and no questions asked. So, we got to say, enough is enough. You got to stop, buying the crap. You got to stop supporting them with your money and your power, whatever it is. But I think, again, we're just going to have to rethink some things. And it's okay to pray too. I have nothing against that either, but I just want to say one thing about that. Frederick Douglass said, I prayed for 20 years for God to free me as a slave. And he said it wasn't until I prayed with my legs that I became free.
I'm talking about right on.
Okay. So thank you, Ron, and I admire you and appreciate your show, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Sister Libby. We love you madly as well, from that famous Washingtonian Duke Ellington would say.
And also, one more thing, I also want to offer my condolences to the young sister, who has lost her son as well. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine how she must feel, that her son could be alive if he had gotten the necessary medical attention that he needed. So I offer my heartfelt condolences, to her as well.
Thank you, Sister Libby. We appreciate it. And we're going to take another. We got more. A lot of people want to talk today. I'm glad. It's like this is much needed conversation. We're going to go to area code 904. Y'all in the air. Welcome to We All Be.
Hi, my name is Cecilia Jackson, and I'm calling in. My son Nathaniel Lee III was murdered in a town called Waycross, Georgia.
Oh, yes. Is your mom on the line, too? Is your mom called in? Has she called in, too?
Yes, she is. Yes.
What's the area code that she's calling from? Is she with you right now?
It's 912.
912. I don't see her on the call, but go ahead, sister. I want to offer my condolences to after your son. It's a travesty. I'm glad you called in. And can you please tell us, what went down with your son and what's going on now?
The basics of what we were told, and from what we could see, I was actually headed down during the time that my son, the same day actually my son was murdered. He was visiting in Waycross, which is my hometown. He's originally from Jacksonville, Florida, and it was Good Friday before Easter. And we were told that he was shot in the back by two white people, and the basics of that is he was at a party, and we don't know who took him to the party. We don't know how he got there, but he was supposed to be waiting for me to pick him up and take him to my mom's for the holiday. And that never happened. We was told several different stories about his death. He was supposedly, him and another female was the only black at this party. The person that shot my son was a racist. He has Hitler all over his body. And from what I was told, it hadn't been long since he was released from jail. My son has no record. He was a good child. I mean, the typical teenager. He was 20 years old, and the guys that had something to do with his death, they had been felons. They had been in several situations, and even after the charges was dropped, they were indicted for murder for my son by a grand jury, and a preliminary hearing was formed when the media kind of died down with what had happened in that town. And we heard about a brief hearing that was taking place. And it was supposed to be for the charges to be brought against one of the Mills, the murderers. He was being charged with drugs and something else, guns and a whole bunch of other stuff. But we all showed up, the family showed up to this hearing. And when they saw that all the family was there, they went into the chambers, the DA and his lawyer and the judge. And when they came back out, it was about dropping the charges with the case with my son. And we were told nothing. We had never been told to even come to that hearing. But I felt like we should have been there because it had something to do with the murderer. And afterwards, I was told that the charges would be brought back up, which never happened. And here we are 5 years later, and I'm still fighting for justice for my son. And they have gotten off of every charge that have been brought up against them. And I don't know if it's allowed, but the guy's name was Reynolds and Mills. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a series of this happening. And in Waycross, it's a cover-up. I don't care what anyone says. I believe that with everything in me. It's so many cases that's been dropped or dismissed, and the media won't touch it because, of course, when it comes down to a murder in that town, you're going to go straight to the DA. You're going to try to find out what happened. Well, when you go to them, it's shut down. So no coverage can get into that town. And this is what we're getting ready to have a march and rally now, actually Thursday, on behalf of all the murders that have happened in the surrounding towns and there. But I agree with what the information that I was hearing. This is an attack on us as a people. I feel like we got to do something, and now it's time to take a national stand against wherever you are, whatever town you're in. You got to do something because it will cause the elimination of our people, of our men, because, I mean, it's happening to women too, but the majority hit is on men. You get the men out of the way, and then you can basically do what you want with the women. But I feel like it is something that we need to address more. Our people, we have a lot of people that come out and give speeches, and then they disappear. Or they say something against what's happening because they don't live in our world. And when I say our world, they're living in the rich world, behind their cash, and they're not coming into reality of what's really going on out here. Our kids are dying in numbers, and they're killing them in cold blood. And nothing is being done. It's being brushed away as, they made a move. My son has never been charged with any type of drugs or using drugs or anything like that. But this case was rubbed off as, he must have been trying to purchase or rob for marijuana. How do you go from never having anything like that happen to this is what's going on? So I'm telling people, you need to stand up, and you need to really take a stand on what's really going on in this country.
That's been, and also I want to bring your mom in on the discussion. I see Sister Jeanette. Are you there, Sister Thomas?
Hi.
Well, welcome to Will. Yeah, it's good. Sister Jeanette Thomas, you are the grandmother of Brother Nathaniel. Now, you told me in D.C. that your grandson was brought to that place by his uncle. Is that correct? Is another relative named Nathaniel?
Yeah, from the police leaving the scene, and from the police leaving where my grandson Nathaniel Lee III got shot at. We were told that the police followed his uncle to his uncle's sister's house and asked did he know anything about a robbery. And so from on the day that he was murdered, he was with his uncle that day. So, for all we know, my grandson was with his uncle Nathan. Nathan is named Nathan Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And from being with the uncle taking him over, we believe, over to his sister's house. He found out he had a sister. And as his uncle took him over to the sister's house, and from there he wound up over to this house where he got shot in the back. And the gentleman, named David Reynolds, my daughter spoke of the pretrial. That's the pretrial we went to, you know. And his name was David Reynolds. It was his marijuana felony charge that the family showed up at. And as my daughter spoke, as my daughter spoke about the family showed up there. So, but I want to clarify that name, David Reynolds. Andre Mills is the one that shot him in the back. The other gentleman that's got AKA on his body, Hitler.
What's the guy named that shot your grandson? What's his name again?
His name is Andrew Mills.
And I want to ask y'all this. Do y'all hold the uncle responsible for, or partially responsible for your grandson and son's death? Let me
answer that, please.
Okay. Go ahead.
Let me answer that. I'm sorry. Now, this is the matter with that. We cannot be sure of that. This is just a presumption. I don't want to put out there that we're saying that this happened, but I know for a fact that my son was with his uncle. His uncle stated that he never saw my son that day, and that's not true. We know that he saw him. His aunt was the one that told us, both of his aunts, that he was with him that day. They came and got a key from her, and I actually have that key in my possession because that key was with my son. That was one of his last possessions. So that's my proof that he was with his uncle. Why is his uncle saying that he was not with him that day? I have no idea. Yeah. But we have not been able to get that addressed. So I don't want us really going that route right now. But I can say that yes, we do know that he was with him that day. Now, whether or not he was the one responsible for taking him wherever he took him, we don't know that for a fact.
But he did know the folks that might be responsible for the killing of your son, correct? He did have a relationship with those folks, the uncle, right?
He was just getting acquainted with his uncle. My son hadn't been in the picture around them. This was an uncle from a second set of kids. His dad his dad was married to his granddad was married to his dad's mom, and then he started a second set of kids, and this was his uncle from the second set of kids.
Okay.
So he was not, he didn't know them that well, and they were the same age.
Okay.
Hey, Ron, can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Tony Brown again.
Yes.
This is what and certainly I can understand your pain for 5 years of not having any closure about your son's death or your grandson, man. My condolences still, because y'all still have an open flesh wound, and it's been festering for 5 years. Part of the problem with the Justice Department is there is no black families. Certainly when unarmed black men are killed at the hands of police, the district attorney is supposed to have somebody in his office to be a intermediary to the family to let them know what the procedure is, what's going on, when trial dates are coming up. So you're telling me that these two guys or these two suspects were brought up on charges and all the charges were dropped, and the only way that y'all found out that they were dropped, that y'all surprisingly showed up at a hearing that y'all weren't even notified about?
It was not even the hearing for that. They were already indicted. So that hearing that they
so they were indicted. So what happened to the trial? If they were indicted, what happened?
We never went to trial. And when we tell this story, people do not believe. We never got a.
So you got a grand jury indictment, and you have a district attorney that has never set a trial date and brought these two guys to justice?
No, sir.
No, sir.
And I have been arrested. Excuse me. I have the newspaper article right here in front of me. I'm looking at it, and this newspaper article, I had to pull it out because it just stated that murder charges dismissed. Judge overturned grand jury felony murder indictment in the shooting of Lee. They went into a hearing for something else, but because the entire family showed up and we let them know we were there, they went in the chambers. The DA wouldn't even talk to me. I'm like, what's going on? He wouldn't talk to me. So my question is, I had to face reality with this. And this is the question that I have. What do you do when the justice system is corrupt? What do you do in that case?
Well, let me tell you what we've been able to do here in Louisiana since Jena. Now, we talked about Jena 7 years ago and the two-tier judicial system. Make a long story short, Michael Bell hit a white kid who had been calling his friend nigga all day. This was after the noose incident. And knocked the kid out. Next thing you know, all 6 of these kids were brought in and all were charged with attempted second-degree murder. Life taken away from them. Judge came in. They were all initially charged with, what was it, Ron? What was it? Assault, felony, not felony, but misdemeanor assault. I think was the initial investigation. Right. But the DA came in there, saw something that wasn't there and said, I'm going to teach these niggas a lesson and I'm going to get them all. And pulled Michael Bell, the 3 of them out of juvenile facility, stuck them all in the big boy jail, grown man jail for 6 years, and we were able to get them out. The one thing that we were able to do, when you got a corrupt, like, and y'all say Waycross, Georgia?
Waycross, Georgia.
Okay, and Waycross, Georgia is about 50 miles north of Jacksonville, Florida. I was a news reporter for ABC with Channel 17 in Jacksonville for 2 years in the early 90s. So I know about Waycross. I've been there reporting there. And you're right. When you go to Waycross, even when I was there in the 90s, it's like going in a time warp. I felt like I was going back to someplace in the 50s as it pertains to how white people were treating black folk. I remember that vividly. So I already know that things hadn't changed in Waycross, and it's still the same old in Waycross. What we have to do is we have to initially go to the FBI. What we have done is, and like Ron made a point, that we have established a blueprint here since Jena, and let me tell you, I've used it time and time again, a network, I call it a network of hope, but that hope lives within the confines of the law. So I bypass the local law enforcement. I immediately go to the FBI, and then if the FBI doesn't give us any satisfaction, we go to the Justice Department immediately. There is a readily number and a department within the Justice Department where they take care of civil rights cases, whether it's a violation within the school system as it pertains to your school or some sort of criminality involving police. They have that department, and you can call Washington, D.C. But you start with the federal government. You start with the FBI, just as we did in the 50s and the 60s in the early civil rights movement when we weren't getting justice in Mississippi during the civil rights cases back then. Many of those local courts would, just like today, they will not get an indictment. They're not going to bring these white folk to court. They're going to run it through the court system bureaucracy, and 4 or 5 years later, we're going to be stuck just as this family is about your grandson and your son, Daniel. We got to go immediately to the feds. We have to establish relationships to them, and we have to beat down their door and ask the feds to get involved immediately when something happens to our children. That's what we've been able to do here in Louisiana. And if that doesn't work, get online now. Use the social media because, Ron, you already know, I was the only one talking about Jena for 6 months before it got a hold to mainstream media. But we were talking about it online. I was blogging about it. I was writing about it. And we have to start utilizing the social media. But immediately bypass the local law enforcement and go straight to the feds. That's what we've been able to do.
Okay.
Can I say something a minute?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay. The gentleman that's talking now, for the question that he was asking my daughter Cecilia, on behalf of the charges that was dropped against David Reynolds, what was going on was David Reynolds was in a pretrial, and the pretrial was his marijuana felony drug charge. That's what he was there for. And we walked in, and when we walked in...
So you're talking about a completely separate trial about something completely different?
Yes.
No, this is the pretrial that brought them to drop the malice murder charge. That's what I'm trying to explain, because the gentleman was asking about the charges being dropped, you know. But my daughter didn't go in. She told him that we showed up at a hearing. It was a pretrial. David Reynolds was charged with possession of marijuana, and it was a felony charge that they charged him with. And what they done was, when we walked in there, I walked over to Barnhill, the DA, and Rick Curry. The Barnhill is the assistant DA. Rick Curry is the head DA. I walked over to the victim advocate, Tammy, and I asked Tammy what was going on. Can she tell us? Tammy stated to me that she would speak to Barnhill. They never come back to the family. But what I was trying to say was that David Reynolds, they dropped, once we was in there, the felony marijuana charge that was brought up on David Reynolds. They turned around and added, as my daughter said, my grandson into David Reynolds' case. That's what happened. And so Rick Curry, the head DA, after everything was over with, he took us around the hallway in an empty room. Not an empty room, excuse me, an empty hallway. And we discussed with him about the charges. Oh, it was the wrong charges was dropped. My daughter stated, Cecilia, she stated, we'll pick it back up. Well, if y'all find some new evidence, then we'll pick it back up.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, when you asked the question about them getting in touch with us, you know the Brown case? When my grandson got murdered, I left 2 o'clock from Albany, Georgia. I was living in Albany, Georgia. I got to Waycross, Georgia at 4, went to the hospital. The lady that was speaking earlier stated that some information was about, they told her that her son was not there. Well, at the hospital when I got there, I asked to see my grandson. My daughter had gotten in Waycross about 11. My daughter left Waycross, Georgia, and went to Albany, Georgia, only to find out that my grandson had died. But I came trying to meet my daughter. And what I'm saying is that to be with my daughter after she was here, and I thought she was here. But when I got to the hospital, they lied and told me that they had sent him on to the crime lab, okay? But Rick Curry, the DA, when my daughter got here that Saturday, the 10th, he died on the 9th. The 10th. She got here the 11th. When my daughter got here, you think the police came and talked to us? They did not come. We set up an appointment to go to them to discuss about what happened to my daughter's child. They did not reach out to us, period. They lied and told my daughter that anything come up, they would send her a letter. They would call her, get in touch with her. They did it one time. After that, we never heard from them again. Okay? So you are the DAs. You representing my grandson. I also lost my baby boy the same year, 2009, December the 30th. When I got to Jacksonville with my other 2 sons, the police came right on him and the advocate lady. They came and they talked to me about what happened to my child. Why couldn't these police here, the DA, the police and the DA, the chief of police is named Chief Tanner. Chief Tanner is the one that we went to. We set up an appointment by he has Nathaniel III has a cousin, his daddy's cousin named Ludine Lee. She used to work for the police department. So we went, the father, my daughter, I, the cousin, Ludine, and his granddaddy. My grandson, my grandson's daddy. We went in there. But my question is, we seeing this bike to bike, Miss Brown. I don't know if they did it to Trayvon Martin's mother. Did they do it to Jordan's mother? Did they do it to Kendrick's mother? Not telling them anything, not communicating, as the gentleman just said. Not communicating with the family like they supposed to. Why are you signaling us out that you don't want to talk to us to find out what's going on? But I would say this also.
Good point.
Had my grandson, when he got shot in the back, we were told that he was standing on the outside of this place by a witness, stated that he was standing on the outside. Had he not ran down to Miss Carter's house and told them to call the police, that somebody had shot him in the back, I believe we would have never found my child. The reason why I'm saying this, because when the police showed up at the house where he was shot at, they lied and stated that they didn't know nothing about any shooting. We don't know nothing about no shooting. Ain't nobody got shot down here.
Wow.
So I wanted to get that point out because, like my daughter said, we don't want to really say stuff that they don't have concrete evidence about right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it can come back at us.
I'm going to ask y'all this, though. Did the uncle have a relationship with the white guys? Did he know him well? The uncle. Did he know the white men well?
The officer?
Did he know, like, the uncle, like the house? Did his uncle, did Nathaniel's uncle know those guys well? That he left his nephew with?
Yes, sir. They stated in the preliminary hearing that John Thigpen is the lawyer. In the preliminary hearing, while we was there, Thigpen questioned each witness, and each one of those witnesses say, I don't know Nathaniel Lee III. I know Nathan. Thigpen, judge sit there and let Thigpen tell them, oh, no, you mean Nathaniel Lee III. Again, each witness stated, I don't know Nathaniel Lee III. I know Nathan. They kept saying they knew Nathan. And then, because I can talk about the preliminary hearing, and then David Reynolds stated that he ain't stole my drugs, he ain't took my money. So why did you drop, why would Rick Kirby, the head DA, and Bond Hill sit there and didn't say nothing while Thigpen was coercing them? Telling them, you mean Nathaniel Lee III, don't you? The judge didn't say nothing. But first of all, my grandson, Nathaniel Lee III, he shouldn't have been in that case in the beginning, in that, with David Reynolds' case. His name shouldn't have been brought up, at all. It shouldn't have been brought up. But you collaborated this whole thing because you know that there was an innocent black child got killed. You never put in the newspaper that these boys was convicted felons. They were drug dealers. Nene wouldn't have never, we call him Nene. Nathaniel Lee III wouldn't have never been around people like that. He didn't hang. I raised my children up. I raised them up to make sure that they don't get themselves caught up in situations or they do something that will cause them to go to jail or prison. I raised my grandbabies the same way. These boys are good boys, every one of them. I'm still raising my other granddaughters and sons, the little ones.
Yeah.
This child was nothing like they said. Nothing like they said my grandson was. He'd never been here as a teenager.
I'm sorry. I just want to say something. This is Nathaniel's mom again. Everything that my mom is saying is true. When we went to the preliminary hearing, it was a circus. You would, even the NAACP was with us. You wouldn't believe how they sat there and they, like she said, coerced everything they said. It was like they were changing it. Like, no, you meant this and you meant that. And I'm like, how is this allowed? This and by the way, this wasn't the original judge that set down the indictment. They changed judges, and they got this judge to overturn the indictment. So this is the kind of things that are happening. And we're sitting there, all of these people that are sitting in court with us, the family, everybody, we just had to sit there and watch and wasn't allowed to express any kind of emotion, you know, and it's just, I don't understand how could that happen.
Wow, well, I just want to offer my condolences. I know it's 5 years late, but, you know, I just what was, like, so the Thursday march, how can people, like, how can we find more information on that? How can we contact you all to find out more information about what's going on with the march and other things?
The march is going to be actually Thursday at 11 o'clock, Waycross, Georgia. We're going to actually meet in front of the police department, and that's off of Oak Street. And we're going to march to the courthouse, the Ware County Courthouse. Okay. And that's on Waller Street?
No, Church Street.
It's on Church Street.
So this is like 11 o'clock Eastern, like this Eastern time, 11 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay, 11 a.m. Eastern. Okay, I'll make sure I post it through my networks and whatnot. And is there any other way, like what's after the march? Like any other action events or anything else planned? Try to raise more awareness.
We're going to actually, yes, it's going to be speaking done at the rally because it will be a rally held once we reach the courthouse. Okay. So there will be speaking. There will be a meeting held right after, so we can talk to different families. We're inviting all of the families out that have been affected by the injustice of the system. So it's just a gathering, a march for justice for our loved ones. So anyone that has had any type of injustice done and have not had their voice heard, we're asking them to come out to be heard, to express what you feel about what's going on, and let's try to see if we can get anything done. And also, I want to mention that we have been trying to get someone for the last 3 years to help us. People don't know where to go. They don't know who to talk to. And this is my main goal, is to try to, find out what can we do, where do we go. And you did give me some good information. But when starting out, when people lose hope, they don't know if anybody's going to help them. That is the biggest thing. And when you're talking about down south, people are already discouraged about different things. And when it comes down to getting justice, they feel like they can't get justice, that nobody's going to listen to them. So we need help. It's not just me. It's so many more people in that town that has just given up, and they don't feel like nothing is going to be done.
And also, like, after the march, go ahead. I'm sorry, sister. Go ahead.
Let me give you the address while you online before we get off. The address is 512 Oak Street. The courthouse is 800 Church Street.
Okay.
We will be leaving from 512 Oak Street as my daughter said.
Mm-hmm.
In the margin, well, they asked that we meet there at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
And the march will start at 11:30.
Okay, that's great. And also, what can we do after, like, the march and rally? Is there any way to contact you all to follow up, like email, phone number, website, anything that I can post as well?
Yes, I would gladly give my phone number. I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Would you like for me to give it now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and Ron, I'd like to get it too, because I'd like to bring him on the show.
Yeah, definitely.
For the rally on my show.
Yeah, Brother Tony got a great and huge following.
My number and my email too, but go ahead, honey, give me your phone number.
It's area code 904-554-8306. And my name is
What's your name again?
Jackson.
I know your son is Nathaniel III. What's your name, darling?
Cecilia Jackson. That's CECILIA.
Got it.
Okay, great.
And Ron, let me get my information out. My name is Tony Brown. I'm a broadcast journalist by profession. Like Ron had mentioned at the beginning of the show, I'm the one that first exposed the Jena Six case and kind of helped with that. But I've been covering at least 12 unarmed murders of black men in Louisiana alone. My show airs on about 5 stations throughout the state of Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi. And what y'all be talking about as far as trying to get the help and trying to get pointed in the right direction to get the help y'all need, been there, did that, I can help. I do have a Hope Network, and we can get y'all in contact with the Justice Department, the FBI, and anybody else outside of that local government. But my number, this is Tony Brown, my number is 318-792 5940. That's 318-792-5940. My email is Eyes Open. That's the moniker of my show. My show is called Eyes Open with Tony Brown. But my email is Eyes Open T, like Tony, Eyes Open T Brown at yahoo.com. That's Eyes Open T Brown at yahoo.com. Send me an email. Send me information about your store. I guarantee we'll allow you guys to come on and at least tell your story to my listeners in this 200-city, 3-state area.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything.
Well, and remember, y'all are not alone. There's a lot of parents and grandparents just like yourself. If we all start getting together and communicating together, just as we're doing with this Michael Garner situation, the Michael Brown situation, just like in Waycross where Nathaniel III was killed and shot by these 2 white folk who they know did it but will do nothing about it. We've been down that road here in Louisiana, just like Georgia, Louisiana ain't no different. We still low-hanging fruit, and they still want to lynch us from trees, and this time they're doing it in the courts. They're doing it in the court system.
Can I say something before you all get off the air?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. The lady that I was speaking about, had my grandson not ran down to Miss Carter's house, as the young lady spoke a little bit earlier about someone being a nurse and didn't come to his aid.
Yes.
My daughter was a retired nurse where my grandson was. She attended to him until the ambulance came. Mm-hmm. But the first ambulance, the rescue ambulance came. They did not have an oxygen tank for my grandson. They dispatched the second ambulance to him. But the question, my daughter, is another thing that my daughter wants to bring to the public, that a police officer in the ambulance questioning a person and they're in critical condition that needs to get to the hospital, that we need to come up with some kind of decision on how we can stop the police, which I thought that they couldn't, they could not question someone when they were seriously where they couldn't hardly breathe. And Miss Carter stated to them that y'all need to get them to the hospital.
Wow.
So I wanted to bring that up too, because the young lady.
Ma'am, they're not supposed to do that. If a victim's life is in jeopardy and the police are holding an ambulance and them medical people up from getting that person to the hospital, that's a crime within itself. That is not supposed to happen.
Well, they did it, and they would not take him on to the hospital. She begged them twice to take him on, and plus they did not use sirens when they took him to, so it was no rush for them to get him there. And he was still awake. We were told that he did not go unconscious until he actually arrived at the hospital. And then he went unconscious and he was rushed into surgery where he later passed away.
So, Ron, you see, the problem is our lives don't matter. Even from the police officers who kill our kids, to the white people who kill them in the court system, even to the medical personnel who take their time getting our children to the hospital when they can be survived. Now, the case in New Iberia, that woman wanted to help, but police wouldn't even allow that nurse who was outside to go and help that child. And he sat dying there for 20 minutes before they even got him to a hospital. He could have lived. So we're seeing the systematic eradication of black people in America from the justice system all the way to the hospital system. And it's about economics. It's about, like the sister said earlier that called in from Mississippi, it's about money. The answer is always money, so what's the problem? And money is something that many of us do not have. We don't have that economic power that other cultures or other people have, and it's a travesty.
I want to thank Sister Jackson and Sister Thomas for calling in with that. I mean, it's a horrible story, but like today, like Haile Selassie said so many years ago, today us, tomorrow you. It can happen to all of us. Just like that, and like your brother Brown was saying, they are wiping us out systemically, and this is genocide. This is systemic genocide, and this is war. So we got to be smart about how we fight this war and start working together more and sharing more in this time of need. So I want to thank you, sisters, for calling in. I feel sorry for what happened to your grandson and son, but know, like Brother Brown said, y'all not alone, and we'll keep updated on this story. Thank y'all so much, and God bless. We love you madly. And no problem. And Brother Brown, I don't want to hold you too long, but I want to go to a couple more calls, and you can hang around if you want to, or you get on out. But I appreciate you calling in.
Go ahead.
Go ahead with the calls.
You got a hot show. You keep doing what you're doing, man. God love you. Keep doing what you're doing, and if we can all do what you do, this world will be a better place.
Yeah, same here. We both reflections, though. We reflections, so we good. I'll definitely keep you in the loop, Brother Brown. Thank you so much.
If somebody needs my help, if you get a hold of something, you call me up, give me that info, and likewise, we got to start building our own network, whether it's on the radio, whether it's on the internet, whether it's on Blog Talk. We got to start networking with each other and telling our story to each other so that we can be a cohesive voice and establish our own media. And this is a start of it. This could be start of something real big.
Yes, sir, Brother Brown. We love you madly, man. Keep on producing and pushing.
Anybody who wants my phone number, Ron, give it to them. Give them my email, because if they got a case and they want to talk about it, and that's what we do on Eyes Open with Tony Brown. We expose unrighteousness and give everybody a voice in their community. God bless you, Ron. I look forward to talking to you, brother. God bless y'all.
Yes, sir. God bless you, too, man. Thank you so much, Brother Tony. I just want to hit the last couple of callers. If y'all got a call, y'all want to get in, I'm about to wrap up the show, but I want to get a couple more calls in before we wrap it up. Let me see. Go down to area code 336. You all on the air. Welcome to We All Be. 336. Okay. Let's say this. So caller 706. You all on the air. Welcome to We All Be.
Greetings.
Greetings.
My name
welcome.
is Elena, and I'm.
Go ahead, sorry.
Greetings. Greetings. My name is Elena, and I'm calling from Georgia.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for calling in.
Yes. I was listening to the two sisters online, and my heart really goes out to them. We had a similar case. Well, we've had a case of police brutality here in my area. I live near Athens, Georgia. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to, I'm a member of the American Institute with Human Rights in Atlanta, Georgia. My mentor is Dr. Mustafa Ansari. Mm-hmm. And I want to bring attention to some of the issues that that you all have been touching base on. Number one, we are dealing with a human rights issue. We're dealing with political and legal issues that's been allowed to fester since the 1960s. It is open season on black folks.
Right.
we're dealing with crimes against humanity, and we're dealing with genocide, we need to use international and human rights law language. We're going to have to, I don't have much faith in the courts here. I think we're going to have to utilize the Inter-American Court, the international arena, because we are quasi-citizens here. We have a political status that has not been addressed. We have legal, we don't even have a legal personality. And that's why we see the state actors getting away with basically murder of our people. And it's to that point we're going to have to come together and have this internal discussion, and we're going to have to get some form of self-determining political status here. As long as we're in the political status that we're in, we're going to remain a dependent, very vulnerable collective group. And I'm being very cautious because I don't want to cause alarm, but we are under attack. If you look at the murders and compare them internationally, they're almost in the same frequency as the murders in Brazil. There's a lot of state-sponsored police murders in Brazil, Nicaragua, where the young African males are under attack, the young African children. If you look at the issue what happened during the World Cup in Brazil, it's the same thing. It is open season on black folks. And we're going to have to come together, and we're going to have to utilize another playing field because the domestic court system here is not working in our favor. The police have sovereign immunity. So they get away, and the court system here in the United States, they get away with murdering. This is murder. This is genocide, our people. So we're going to have to come together. We have a whole gamut of rights as a minority in international law that we have not even scratched the surface on using yet. We have got to utilize those special rights as a collective group. We have collective rights that we haven't touched. We have a right to self-determination. We have a right to self-definition. We have a right to own and control the institutions in our community. What happened in Ferguson is a travesty that black people constitute 70% of the population, and they had only 3 black officers. That is a travesty, and that shows the exclusion. We make up the majority population in about 700 cities in the United States. And in most of those cities, black folks are poorly, they are very underdeveloped. So we have a human rights issue here. And we've got to go back and look at what happened during the 60s. There was some very bad mistakes that was made, and we're going to have to go back and correct those mistakes. We don't have time to play around. And Yes, and I just want to get the word out that there is something we can do. I'm not opposed to filing complaints with the Department of Justice. I'm not opposed with people utilizing domestic law, but I do want it to be known that we just can't, stay on that one particular path. We got to use every political and legal tool at our disposal because our very lives depend on it. It could be me. It could be you. It could be your brother, your sister, your child. So we need to know what rights and what type of tools we have to use in international and human rights law to get this jackboot up off of us. Because as a minority, we have certain rights that we haven't even came close to utilizing yet.
Okay, so how can we get in touch with you and your organization? What would be the best way to find out more information?
Okay. Well, if you like after the show, my number is area code 706-425-2865, and I'll be here waiting on your call. And I would love to share the information with you, share some websites with you so you can see for yourself. right now we don't have a judicial personality in domestic law here in the United States. But if you want to file a complaint, we could file a complaint in the inter-American courts. International law gives us that legal personality that we need. It gives us that coverage that we need as a collective group. And we have got to get the word out on some avenues that we can use because we are under attack. We have been, but the frequency and the degree and the nature has been stepped up. So, we have got to do something. We have got to do something, and we've got to start letting people know what their rights are, so they can know how they're being violated. Because I hear a lot of people when they're engaging in dialogue. Oh, well, if your children pull up their pants, maybe the police will respect them. No. It doesn't matter if our children got on a 3-piece suit. If they're honor roll students, it don't matter how many degrees they got.
Right.
If they're going to be under attack, because we're under attack as a people. We've always been, but now it's being stepped up. So we've got to start using the correct language. We're undergoing domestic genocide. We constitute an internal colony. As an internal colony, there are certain international and human rights protections that we are privy to that we do not utilize. So that's the verbiage we need to start using. And we have to be strong about it. That's why I'm trying to get the word out. I'm trying to let people know. So, because when I heard those two sisters on the line, I hear the pain. I hear their pain. And it could be my sons. I have 4 boys. It could be my nephew. It could be my brother. It could be anybody. So we have got to come together as a people. We have a lot of internal factors. We have a crime in our area. We have the black-on-black crime, but we cannot let those internal social problems, which are nothing but the after effects of the big external problems of the exclusion and the maldistribution of wealth and resources that causes the crime in our communities. We cannot keep laying that as a justification for these police to keep abusing our children. We got to stop using that type of talk when we're talking about what's going on with our babies. They don't deserve what they're getting. They don't have to justify themselves to anybody. They have a right to walk the streets. They have a right not to be profiled. They have a right to be treated fairly because they're human beings. We have human rights that we're being deprived of as a people. And that's what we have to focus on. That's the type of language we're going to have to start using. That language where the world can hear us, where they can see. Because every time we justify, he sold drugs, they use that as a precursor to do what they do to our boys. Oh, he had his pants down. Oh, he raised the pitch of his voice. That's no excuse to gun anybody down. That's no excuse. That is no excuse. Oh, he had his hands in his pocket. That's no excuse. That is no excuse. We're dealing with genocidal conditions here. And that is the language that we need to start using. And I don't want to take up too much time, and you have my number, and I urge you to give me a call after the show. I look forward to speaking with you, and I yield the floor back to you.
All right, so it was great. We need to hear this. Well, I'm glad you did all that, and I'm definitely going to be contacting you soon after I wrap up the show. But thank you for calling in and being patient for waiting to help the platform. So I want to thank you. We love you madly.
And thank you, too, for having me on. And you have a blessed night.
You too. And we want to take one more call before we get out here because we're in overtime mode right now. So I want to go down to Philadelphia or go up. 215, you're on the air. Welcome on We All Be.
Raubat, Dwana Ter, I am Angel Lady Love, Angela Del Philly, Lady True Oracle, Rabibi, I am, Honorable Brother Ron, and all the We All Be family. I do bow before all of you, especially those who I present my condolences. And this has been going on for more than just these few years. Unfortunately, these are the situations that have had to happen to make us wake up to the fact that we are the higher universal, melanin-enriched, supremely divine man and woman of the four corners of the planet Earth. I heard a little earlier talking about Africa. We have been in this continent, in this hemisphere, which now has been labeled America. We're within the United States of America, well before, in fact, I'll even go back millions of years before the degenerates, or if you will, the genetically engineered beings, were even found in the caves causing all kinds of disease when the Moors had to go and clean them up and teach them how to bury their dead. And their genetic engineers, what they would be creators, have taken our information and given it to them, and now we think we're them and they're us. It's an oxymoron to call anything white supremacy. And I can give more details. We were never supposed to mix with them. That's Leviticus chapter 18:22. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. They are a kind of man. They are the clean lepers as we know of them now. That's in Leviticus 13. And moreover, I can give details about that. But I'd like to bring to us the fact that we need to change our perspective. I hear people talking about the police are supposed to do this, and the judges are doing that. These are our employees. Until we take our rightful stance as the employer and stop letting these people say, well, if you don't vote, you don't count. Yes, we do, and so do our children. But why are they taking our children that are preteens, 10, 11, 12, and charging them as adults? Because we won't say anything. And the bottom line is, all of them, it is in our Declaration of Independence. Those are our tenets, our laws. We're people of the law. They utilized our laws, and now they're using them against us. It clearly says in there that we're endowed by our Creator. That means these are our birthrights. Unalienable rights. That means no one can take them away, can't be given away, can't be separated. And among these aren't our only rights. Life to have it more abundantly. That's John 10:10. Because Thomas Jefferson not only used my book, Bible means book, he also used the Holy Quran transliterated into English. And we have to remember both of those books were transliterated by our very enemy. So yes, it has a few lies in there, but moreover, it's still our book. And I tell you, when you read the last chapter, it tells you where and who's going to win. And one of the things we've got to do, since we've given them the charge of the pen to write down the definitions of words, we need to look up words that we're using. I heard the word kid so much it was making me sick. Because in my book, in Matthew 25, it tells me, my highest commander who spoke with a parable, without a parable he did not speak, he said the king's going to separate sheep from the goats. Goats are going to hell. Well, the first meaning of the word in most English dictionaries is the real meaning. The first meaning of the word kid is young goat. Do we want them calling us an old goat? We manifest with our words. I've heard too many things. This country, we're going to change this country. The country's nothing wrong with the country. The earth is the Lord's, the fullness thereof, and those who dwell therein. There's nothing, the earth is ascending, and we are ascending. This is where we're waking up. But moreover, the fact remains we've got to recognize what are our rules and laws. As I said, the Declaration of Independence goes on to say the consent of the governed. They haven't asked us nothing, and we don't even have to vote to get our consent. When our employees are hired in the general election on the Tuesday after the first Monday in November, they're not supposed to practice their party's agenda. They're supposed to become nonpartisan, and we have more than a two-party system. We not only have Democrats, which has nothing to do with democracy, we have Republicans that have nothing to do with the fact that we are a republic. We have the Libertarian, the Green Party, the Constitutional Party. We even have communists and socialists. But moreover, again, they're supposed to ask us, what do we want and need? They're not supposed to send our children overseas to kill people that we don't even want to fight. And moreover, George W. Bush has committed crimes against humanity. I understand in certain countries like Canada, if he steps there, they can arrest him. In certain states here, they can arrest him. Are any of us looking into that? No. In addition to that, the fact remains that they've got us pitting up against each other. We're so busy not realizing that all these cell phones, iPhones, iPads, computers, number one, we really don't need them. We have telepathy. We have all kinds of abilities, but we've forgotten. This is why it says in my Old and New Testament, wake up. The fact remains they're using those very electronic devices against us. They're using it to hypnotize, brainwash, I'm going to have to say mind control. Because in my book it tells me when I keep my mind stayed on him, and if we really remember who we are, nobody can mind control us. But that's what's happening. I belong to a group that's called Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance. The bottom line is all of us are being programmed, and all of this stuff is staged, orchestrated, activated, presented. That's why they keep saying, well, put a camera up. I've noticed when Britain was doing it initially, and not one sound piece to it. Yet we had a sound piece to a camera, and they still found the guy and made reasons for this police to not be charged. All of these police are shooting guns. If we realize even the BB guns, those BB shots are made with lead. Lead poisoning. Honorable King, Honorable Elder Baba, Dr. Richard Califax Dick Gregory told us at the top of this year that all bullets have lead in it. I took that and started running with it, even if it's covered in copper. When those discharge, what is the largest organ of our body? Our skin. Mm-hmm. Those people are doing all that shooting and wearing the bullets on their body. It's getting in their body, in their orifices. What's their orifices? Their eyes, their nose, their mouth, their ears, their skin. What happens with lead poisoning? Look up lead poisoning under mayoclinic.org, M-A-Y-O, clinic, C-L-I-N-I-C.org. Lead poisoning in children, and you know that the children can get it just having lead paint on a wall. Right. The bottom line here is it causes libido problems and mental instability. Well, one of those cops, I don't know what was the one that was in with the honorable brother, young 12-year-old Tamir
Rice. Yeah,
one of these people. Yes, Rice. One of those officers, they said that they knew that he was he had an instability problem. They didn't tell you the whole part. Mental instability. Right. It's from the lead. We shouldn't even be touching lead. And the other thing is marijuana. Come on. It is high in estrogen. Soy is in everything. I've talked to young mothers. They told me, oh, yeah, the doctor told me I can't give my baby my milk, and the only milk I can use is soy milk. You know why? Because soy is made of high estrogen. You know what estrogen is? That is a female hormone. It can make women into lesbians. It's making our men effeminate. Moreover, because we're having our babies into the hospitals, they're whispering in their ears because they want our children to be like the ones that theirs are born that way. That's in my chapter 2 and 3 of Genesis, where these genetic engineers, the third part talks about the man, the reptilian serpent man. Both Adam and Eve ate the same way because Adam had been made a hermaphrodite. I can give more details. The bottom line here is, and therefore I can give more details. I won't try to hold it up with, but I can give facts.
Yeah, we got to get off. Yeah.
So real quick, may I give Angel Lady Love documents? I do not have internet nor computer, but my president of the FFCHS has put on an email four sets of documents that I have as Angel Lady Love documents, parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. May I give that email address? And
yeah, go ahead. Give the email address. Yeah, go ahead.
They can see my number, and my phone rings 1 to 7 times. It does not have an outgoing verbal prompt. It will record. The person would leave their name and number, and I'd call them back. The email address is, I'll say it and then spell it, DerrickCRobinson@gmail.com. That's Derrick with 2 R's. D as in David, E-R-R-I-C-K. Middle initial C as in Charles. The last name Robinson with 1 B, ROBINSON @gmail.com. Ask for Angel Lady Love documents, parts 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'd like to be able to give you more details about the marijuana. We used to have certain people that administered these hallucinogenic drugs. It was to help us go into other dimensions. We are interdimensional beings. We are ascending. And the bottom line here is this is what they're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at us, staging these events so to keep us on a low level so we won't remember who we are. But we are going to remember who we are, and we're going to act like we know. And we're not going to turn low life for these degenerates. And I can give more details. I thank you for listening. And I will be calling all of you that's given your number out that I was able to get, and I hope you tell Honorable Dr. Randy Short that I need to speak to him, too.
Yeah, I try to call you back on there. I actually wait for your phone was ringing over 7 times when I called. I try to give you another call back and give you his number. But I'll try to reach out to you when you call.
Okay.
Okay, Sister Angela, thank you so much for that information. And we'll be in touch.
I love you all, and perfect love casts out fear. Keep the faith. All of your loved ones, John chapter 11, verse 25 and 26. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as death in one sense, but these people are taking our organs. If there was any operations, they did take organs out. Even these, what are they called? The funeral directors will not tell because they don't want to go to court. But these beings eat those things, too. I can give more details, but your loved one lives. Talk to them as you talk to me. Talk inside yourself to them. They will. I have seen. So I can give more details. Call me. I can tell you. It's all about life and to have it more abundantly. My highest commander showed everything. It has nothing to do with religion. Thank you for listening. What I do.
Well, no problem, Sister Angela. Thank you so much. From the city of brotherly and sisterly love, sometimes. And that does it for this. This is an overtime session. I want to thank for everybody for staying on for so long. A lot of people still in the switchboard. But we'll get y'all next time. A lot of shows to be coming up before the end of the year. Every time I try to go out the air to keep on pulling me back in, like Michael Corleone or something like that. But it's just so much stuff happening right now. I just want black folks to stay woke and really send some positive affirmation and prayers out to everybody going through it right now as black people. But also keep your eyes open on what's going on in Ferguson. Like I said, 2 witnesses who testified in the Darren Wilson grand jury situation have now come up dead within a matter of a couple of weeks. So keep your eyes on Ferguson and keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Keep all of us in your thoughts and prayers and listen to the ancestors. Take care, everybody. God bless and we love you all madly.